boys are going to bring the heat today.
As the leader of the Booner Pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the f*** up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys.
Welcome to Crunch Time Sports with Jeff, Booner, Lucas. It is Wednesday, February 5th. It is the day of the doc. Okay, he's coming on today. It's going to be great. We also have a Pistons trade. I got him on in the background. I'm watching. Hey, the big day. KJ Martin, the biggest trade. Luka was big. Bring me KJ Martin in two second rounders.
How about it?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Also, Myles Garrett down in New Orleans talking to the media. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he shared his thoughts on Myles Garrett. Don't worry, the whole show's not Myles Garrett, but we're going to talk about it. Josh Jacobs throwing shade at his wide receivers. We got a great show today.
Yeah, hey, it should be fun. I'll tell you what, boys, I don't know about you guys, and this is just me being completely honest. I know as Lions fans, it might hurt. One of my favorite weeks of the year is Super Bowl week because, like, I could sit there. Like, there's not enough time in the day to watch the content that comes out of the Super Bowl. Like, it is media row all day long, and I do my best trying to watch everything. Like the Pat McAfee show, you gotta, I don't know if Colin Coward's there this year, Jeff. I didn't check, but like every big time show, I saw Chad Ochocinco almost getting in a fight on Radio Row.
Harrison, that's an insane fight to pick.
Yeah, it's just like I love it. It's just like the content that comes out of Radio Row, and we were gonna go if the Lions win, so it would have been like an experience. Hopefully next year, no matter what, we're there. We're just going to it, but like. Just like the vibes from Radio Row, the content, and the stuff that comes out, boys, it's like it's one of my favorite weeks of the year just based off like I can just content. It's like football content galore, and it's the best thing ever. Like, all I did today was just watch NFL. I watched hours of John Gruden today. Hours. I watched hours of Pat McAfee. I got to see Trey Hendrickson talk today. It was unbelievable. Fred Warner, like
says Trey Hendrickson.
I've never seen Trey Hendrickson in the media before, dude. I've never like sat down and watched a Trey Hendrickson. And I got Myles Garrett. Like all this news is going on. The man's doing a parade around Radio Row when the biggest news of the NFL offseason drops, and he's just like, "I'm right here, boys. Come and talk to me." It's like
he knew what he was doing when he was dropping that. When he dropped that post, he knew what he was doing. But I'm with you. But
Monday morning of Super Bowl week.
It's the whole NFL world because normally the NFL world, all these players are worried about their games, what they got going on. All the media is covering different games, but it's all focused around one game. And I am excited. It's obviously not the most exciting Super Bowl, but the chance to see history, I think like it's good to be able to keep that in perspective, even if the Chiefs win. Like that, this is something that probably won't ever be done again, at least anytime soon. Hopefully the Eagles fucking win. But great day. Back to the main point, boys. Great day. Great day.
Yeah, like the Myles Garrett stuff's awesome. Like. It's fun, but nothing trumps KJ Martin to the Detroit Pistons. In all seriousness, the Pistons made a trade.
How about that?
I don't even want to call it a trade. I just want to call it like a Sixers basically giving the Pistons KJ Martin, who they'll probably move or not. I mean, I don't expect KJ to like stick around, but they got 2 second-round picks. The Sixers, and this is the thing with the new apron, like this apron shift in the NBA, where teams, if you're above it, and we'll talk to Shawn about it, he's super sharp with that type of stuff. The Sixers were like above the apron or like the whatever it is to where you get penalized. And so the getting rid of KJ Martin kind of like helps put them under that. So it was basically like a salary dump. The Pistons were like, cool, I'll take KJ Martin, but you're also giving me 2 second-round picks that we'll probably use to trade for someone else. And it's not that it'll be 2 second-round picks, but they're stocking up second-round picks because the Pistons, their first-round pick situation is like, a little tricky. So they basically are building a vault of second-round picks to potentially make some sort of move. Like, to me, it's not even about the move. It's about the move that could lead to a move.
Yes.
So we'll see where it goes. But Trajan Langdon, like from what I've seen out of him, he seems like a very calculated dude. I like what I've seen. Obviously, the team's winning games. Like he's done a good job with JB now, hiring him. But I'm curious what this leads to. Essentially, it's not even the trade; it's what comes next. Which I'll
tell you what too. If anyone, I don't know if anyone like has our alerts on for our social media. If you don't, you should go throw them on. You probably got about 4 or 5 alerts from us because I could not wrap my head around. And I maybe Jeff was for a little bit as well because we were texting back and forth. I couldn't wrap my head around the trade that was getting like thrown out there. Like I was like, there's no way that they just said, hey, take 2 of our second round picks and KJ Martin, and we don't want anything back. I was like, I'm so confused. And I tweeted it a couple times. Jeff sent a graphic that just, we were all just like, what's happening right now? And then finally it clicked, like it clicked for Jeff. Jeff texted me through sent me a new graphic. And then I posted it wrong again. And he texted, and then it clicked. I go, we just got 2 second round picks and KJ Martin for free. Like there's nothing to it. Like, it was basically just, here, we're going to help you guys out here. And that was when I realized that. What did I tell? What was the first text I sent you right after that, Jeff? There's another move coming. There's not, and I'll tell you guys what, and I'll just be quite frank, whether you agree or disagree with me or not. If Trajan Langdon doesn't make a move in the next 24 hours by the time the trade deadline ends, it's a disappointment of a trade deadline to me. Yeah. Very disappointed. And like fans should be pounding their table. I don't think I get it. Like, hey, you're still maybe a couple years out of contending for a NBA final. You're the 6th seed right now. When you have a chance to get into the playoffs and get to the dance and make a move, you do it. And you go, you are buyers now. You don't sit back and just bring in KJ Martin in 2 seconds and be like, all right, there we go. We did it. We're good. No, If he doesn't get a deal done with a legit player who can help this team go contend in the playoffs, that's a disappointment of a trade deadline from Trajan Langdon. I'll just be quite frank. There's the people, and I was like this a month ago, I just want to see what Trajan's going to do. I want to see this. I want to see. No, it's like, I know what you have to do, Trajan. You have to go out and get a player. You have to. Go get someone. We've already, and we'll probably talk to Shawn about it, and we'll talk about it later in the show. I know we have a segment on it, on who to trade for and all of that. And we talked about it earlier this week too. But if there's not a deal done, what is it, 3 o'clock tomorrow, boys, 4 o'clock tomorrow, whatever the trade deadline time when that hits, if there's not a trade that goes through of a player that can help you win, that's disappointing. Very disappointing. And that would be my first disappointment in Trajan Langdon being like, hey, what are you doing?
So I think and we'll get to what players we expect. I expect someone to be brought in that will help this team in their chase to secure a play. Like I'm with you, Boone. If there's not a move made, to me it's disappointing because I don't think this isn't about going all in and getting a player that's under contract. I mean, if you can get a really good player, sweet. But what I expect is someone to be brought in. We talked about what we're looking for on yesterday's show. Like player-wise, I don't want to give it away yet, Tyler. I see you saying what player. We have players, but we're going to get to that later. We're going to have Shawn on. Shawn, who does great work, one of the brightest Pistons guys I know, and he's going to help us kind of walk through tomorrow, trade deadline expectations. And then after that, we'll get into players because we do have players we're looking for. I don't want to go through it right now, but it was a good move by Trajan. Hey, we'll take it. We'll take those second-round picks off your hands. And I'm with you, Boone. I think a move will be made. Now, who? We'll get to it. But I expect something to happen.
It's not even too. Tyler says blind disappointment is just silly. It's not blind disappointment. Like you're in the 6th seed right now, and you have a chance to stay in the 6th seed. You don't even have to play in the play-in game. If you make the right move and add a piece that's going to help this team take one step forward, whether it's a shooter, whether it's another guy to back up Cade, another ball handler to come in because Ivy's out. Like there are different ways you can approach it. But if you don't find a way to help your team get 5% better with this trade deadline after just acquiring KJ Martin in 2 seconds, that's disappointing. It's not blind faith or it's not blind disappointment. It's, hey, you're the 6th seed. You have an opportunity to even grow on that and get into the 5th seed and keep moving up and keep this team. It's an expectation at this point. When you're in that spot, there's no more like, we're at 9-10, right on the verge of the play-in. Like, no, expectations change as you start playing throughout the season and winning games. Things change.
Because it doesn't even have to be a Jimmy Butler. Like he's not in a place, Trajan Langdon, where he's trying to force a big move to happen. If you can bring in a guy that you could even use next year to come off your bench and you can plug and play, because obviously the Pistons would love to have Jaden Ivey right now, and that would make the playoff run a lot easier. But he's out for the season. He's going to be down for a long time. So bring a guy that can kind of bring that impact while he's down. So I do think it's very important. It would be a disappointment, not obviously for the season, but for this first trade deadline. Like Trajan, he's flipped this franchise around almost in a year, and he could really keep that momentum going, even if it's a role player type of move. But at any point, just help this team a little bit more to help them keep the momentum going.
They're ahead of schedule. That's
yeah.
what it
And
is.
you know what? I'm tired of people too in Detroit being like, it's better than the wrong, like Steve Wild, it's better than the wrong move, Booner. It's the same thing with this Myles Garrett. Like, buddy, like you have to make moves and take risks. Like everything's not going to work out, but when you're in a position to win, you make the move. Like that's part of the game. It's in hockey and baseball. Like it was an argument with the Tigers last year. Do you sell the pitchers? Do you buy to try and make a little, like, what do you do? It's like, you're in a spot to buy. Like you're a top 6 team in your conference. Like you take a step forward. Like Cade's only getting better. Like these guys are only getting better. It's there's no question like, well, you don't want to make the wrong move. No, you make a move and you stick with your move. And if it doesn't work out, I would rather you make a move and it not work out than you not make a move and just not try and you drop into the play-in and end up falling out of the playoffs. That's it. Like,
yeah,
as a fan, quit being scared. That's where I think fans, because we've been bad for so long in every single franchise, there are a lot Detroit sports fans right now who are just scared to make moves because it's been so long. Like, welcome back to being good again. Like, you have to make moves to win. Welcome back.
You're absolutely spot on about that. I think a lot of it is like, it's people being worried about making the same mistake again when it comes to Detroit sports franchises making awful trades. I can go through being a Pistons fan, especially
for
some
sure
of the awful trades we've seen, and with the Lions. So like, there is that, like, they're hurt from past things. I'm not speaking for everyone, but there's people out there that I do believe are like that. It's different. Like it's different. Again, we'll get to the names later. We got some guys in mind. We're going to talk to Shawn about it. It'll be great. But speaking of transactions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you heard it from him directly. He talked about Myles Garrett on his podcast. And by the way, I saw the comment, Myles Garrett again. I'm bringing this up. We're not going to spend the entire show on Myles Garrett, but I would be remiss if I did not bring up this clip. This clip is gold. So let's hear from Amon-Ra on the St. Brown podcast, talking about Myles Garrett. So let's hear from him directly.
You know what? I'm not sure. I should probably ask Brad Holmes.
You should. I feel like he could have helped you guys in the playoffs, maybe.
I mean, yeah. I think so. Yeah, of course he could have. I think a lot of guys could have helped us in the playoffs.
What does that mean? You throwing shade?
Like, we were just down. We were down numbers.
Oh, okay.
We were hurt, a lot of injuries. But yeah, I should probably text Brad and see, what they're thinking about doing. Him and Aiden and Aleem and DJ and all of our D-line, bro.
Who would you trade for?
I swear, if you have a D-line that's nasty, you don't need any corners. You don't need anything. Just play off and just play it off.
Who are you going to trade? Who would you trade for? Who would you trade for? Like, who would you give?
I mean, I don't know. How does it usually work? They usually trade draft picks, right?
A draft pick and a player, or like an Aiden for Myles,
No, fuck no.
No?
No, Aiden's not going anywhere.
Okay.
Aiden's about to get locked up in 3 months. He's locked line for life.
Maybe like and you also got to take into account like how much he's getting paid right now because you're going to take over his contract. So
how much is he getting paid? Can we get a number on that, Mike? How much is Myles Garrett? What's his salary cap?
So he's gonna dent your salary cap. So you maybe not as high of a draft pick. Who knows?
Myles Garrett, Aiden. Oh my God! Like even like during the year, we were thinking like Max Crosby and Aiden would be nuts.
Oh, Max would be nuts too. Yeah,
but I think he's gonna be a part of Raider for life too. But
I mean, like, and by the way, real quick, it's funny how they mentioned trading Aiden for Myles Garrett. It's funny.
Yeah, ironic.
It's like if that was actually someone's opinion, it would be crazy. It would. So like the fact that
no.
I will say this.
This guy Jeff, man.
I will say this.
That's out of control, dude.
I think Amon-Ra boys is it's not rocket science. Like Amon-Ra, hey, I love it, and he's right. Like player wise, I don't know what do you have to do maybe with players, but I love this from St. Brown. This is exactly what I love to see. The whole like player, all these NFL players having podcasts. when it was first created, this is why players have podcasts for this. I'm kidding. But for one of the reasons to address things like this, I love that you can be like, what does a Lions player think of it? Oh, we can tune into Amon-Ra St. Brown's podcast and he'll be on there going, bring me Myles Garrett. So I love it.
Hey, by the way, too, I don't mean to interrupt because we're talking Lions right now, but breaking news from Shams. He's been on it, dude. Shams is like elite. The Heat are sending Jimmy Butler to the Warriors officially for Andrew Wiggins, Dennis Schroeder, Kyle Anderson, and a first-round pick.
That's actually a great haul for Miami too. I'm not.
Yeah,
even
that's a good.
I mean, the fact that they probably weren't going to have Jimmy no matter what, anyways, and to bring in Andrew, Dennis Schroeder, Kyle Anderson, slow-mo machine, and a first-round pick, like that's good for them. Good for them.
Andrew in a first-round pick, like if you don't even look at the other players, like Andrew's been playing well this year, man. That's a good trade for them.
So that's big. It was weird too because Jimmy didn't want to go to the Warriors, but something must have changed. Like he was like, I don't really want to go.
Can't be too mad at bro. You're going to play with Steph.
Yeah, Steph. I mean, there's still a good team there. Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, and you know what's funny about, and back to the Myles Garrett, Amon-Ra stuff, like this is like the realization again, and I think I'm out of anyone I can have the most to say about it because last week I was like, don't make these deals. And then once you actually start like thinking about it, and it's like, hey, once I pull my head out of my you-know-what, you start realizing like, yeah, you have to make this move. And I said it yesterday, like all those people who are like on the defense of it on Twitter, trying to act like, hey, I'm the smartest man in the room. Like I haven't seen any of those people post today because guess why? Well, your star player came out and said, I would want Myles Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
Like the heart of your football team. And I literally, because when I knew we were doing this segment, I went and looked at some of the people I knew that were like against, haven't seen really any tweets about it all day. And it's like, this is the biggest news. Like Myles Garrett's all over. And then what did I say yesterday? I said, hey, as soon as it starts to become a little realistic and other people start to go, yep, that's when people are going to start turning and being like, oh, I guess trusting Brad if it happens. Like, no, we know your opinion. Stay on that side. We'll be over here with Myles Garrett and go win a Super Bowl. Amon-Ra St. Brown, literally one of the best players on your football team, being like, what wins football games? Jeff Klotz, what's been my one thing the last 2 years since we've been doing a show together that I've been really mad about and it's been having the Aquara brothers, having Charles Harris as having these just bums, no offense to the fellas, but having just bums that aren't that level NFL players on your defensive line. And that's what you're relying on to go win a Super Bowl when you have the best offense in the NFL. You have some of the best safeties, some of the, one of the best edge rushers, but you can't give him anyone else. It was like, at some point has to happen, right? Like, and Amon-Ra said it. I don't even know if it was in that clip, but at some point I was listening to it. Like he says, you win game. Like if you have a pass rush, you don't even need to worry about your corners. You don't need to be worrying about anything else. If you look at the Chiefs, boys, like they rotate through corners every other year because guys get paid. But those corners, I know they can play, but they look so good because they constantly have great linebackers, Sam linebackers that get to the quarterback. They have great edge rushers. They have Chris Jones in the middle. Like they get to the quarterback no matter what. Look at the Eagles. They have two. It is unprecedented to see two rookies on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary, go out there and dominate the way they do. Hey, I wonder why they do that. Maybe it's because they have Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter and those guys up front getting to the quarterback that is just creating havoc, and it makes it easier on Cooper DeJean, on Quinyon Mitchell. Like, it's like, hey, this is a simple formula, boys. The people out there who are trying to argue against it, it's a simple formula. If you don't want to hear it from me, Jeff or Klotz, turn on the Amon-Ra St. Brown podcast and go listen to the one and only say it. Hey, if you have a pass rush, you can win. Your defense is that's all it takes. It's a pass rush. One of the best wide receivers in the NFL telling you. Some of those people might be listening. They know who I'm talking to, but that's it. Like
at this point, I feel like it's an objective statement. Like to go against it, you can. It's your opinion, but the fact is that you should want Myles Garrett on the Detroit Lions, and every team shouldn't. If you hear Myles Garrett, the thing is, boys, if I had to guess where Myles Garrett ends up, especially, and I know he can't directly command, no pun intended, where he's going, but I think he's going to end up in Washington because I think they talked about, like, they brought up the Detroit Lions, Myles Garrett, and I think was it Dave Burkett who brought it up saying, yeah, like I haven't thought of that yet. But then if you watch Myles Garrett, and I believe it was Micah Parsons interviewing him, and Micah Parsons directly ask him about the Commanders, and you can kind of see like Myles Garrett like lights up when they talk about the Washington Commanders. And if you think Dan Quinn, a defensive head coach whose defense just cost him a chance at a Super Bowl, like in the year one, that's going to be attractive. The fact that they were supposed to be in a rebuild, they were kind of they met expectations and more in a dramatic way. So at this point at their rebuild process, they probably thought they were going to be having a top 10, top 15 pick, and they need a star on the defense side of the ball. They're not finding that where they're at the draft right now. So they're going to probably be the lead candidate, calling up, picking up the phone, resetting the defense for this franchise, because offensively, they found their difference maker year one. Year two, on the defensive side of the ball, go and do it. So Washington, they're going to be picking up the phone. Obviously, a lot of teams are, but the Lions and the Commanders are the two teams, and Philly, unfortunately, I think can too. Detroit's got to make the move, because if Myles Garrett lands in Washington or Philly, like that is going to be a problem the Lions will run into year in and year out, because in the playoffs, if you make a run, you're going against Myles Garrett most likely.
Another team that I'm hearing, like the Packers, like that's like I've seen on Twitter, like the Packers are a team that their fan base and their franchise is like, yeah, that like again, like everyone's, and this is why I think it's crazy that some people don't want it. It's like every single franchise in the NFL, like boys, like the Eagles are in the Super Bowl right now. They have a stacked defensive line. You know what Eagles fans and people there are saying? Howie Roseman's the best GM in the NFL. And like I watched a show that I watched. There's an Eagles guy in there, and they asked, hey, what do you predict Howie Roseman's getting it? Howie Roseman's going to do it. And it's like, why are those teams and those fan bases and those people so confident being like, yep, that's just what a good franchise does. We go out and get good players. He's coming to Philly.
Yeah.
But then Lions fans, and then some of these people try to be the smartest guys in the room are like, no, it just doesn't make sense. No, just good play. No, I'm okay. It's like, dude, at some point, like these moves got to be made. And I think Brad knows that. Like, if someone wants to hit the argument with those boys, hey, I'll tell you what. Someone give me the argument that Brad Holmes isn't that type of guy, because then I'll throw the file right down in front of you. And so, hey, why'd he call for Danielle Hunter then? Hey, why did he make a call for Max Crosby at the deadline?
Boone, you can call, but it comes down to getting that, like,
it does. But listen,
guys that don't let that phone get hung up without a deal.
But I'm not saying that. But Klotz, you're misreading my point here. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about getting the deal done. What I'm saying is the people who say Brad doesn't do that. No, hey, here's a whole file of Brad making calls of trying to do it. He wants to do it. He looks to do it. Whether the phone call, Klotz, it gets hung up or not, he's pushing to make those moves. So all of your arguments are voided. I heard someone today, local radio station, saying this is not a Brad Holmes thing. He doesn't. Wrong. Dead wrong. He's made these phone calls. He's been public. He's said himself he's called for Danielle Hunter. He said he called for Max Crosby. He's made these phone calls, boys. Like, it's just at the end of the day, it's like, Klotz, I get what you're saying too. Like, great GMs don't let those players off the phone and they get it done, but like the man's calling. So don't tell me he doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, they Mina Kimes asked him about just the importance of quarterback play. Like he wants to go to a team with a really good quarterback. Like obviously, because he even said it, like you need a good quarterback, great quarterback to contend for Super Bowls. And he's had a front row seat to Deshaun Watson. So he knows how important it is. So when she asked him about Jaden Daniels, and he was like, yeah. And he like went into detail. Like, is there going to be a lot of teams? Of course. But Commanders have arrived. They're a good team now. So, and yes, I have an update here. A part of that Jimmy Butler deal. Part of the deal, Warriors Lindy Waters III and Heat's Josh Richardson are heading to the Detroit Pistons. So another, hey, you're taking on assets. That's what the Pistons are kind of in right now. But I'll tell you what, Josh Richardson's only played in 8 games this year. He hasn't been healthy. And he always struggles with health, to be quite honest with you. But when he's on the court, I actually like Josh Richardson. I'm not going to lie to you. He can shoot. He can defend. I don't know what it looks like, his future. But, hey, Pistons are included. I don't know who Lindy Waters
is. Yeah, so give me a breakdown of Lindy Waters III. LW3?
So it seems Lindy Waters III is a forward. And he's been basically a role player for the Warriors, shooting 33 from the field. He's in his 4th year. Lindy Waters III from Oklahoma State.
You're making these statements like it's a question. shooting 33% from the field.
But
Role player for
career,
the
the
Warriors.
last 3 years, he's shot 30, 43, 36, 36 from three. So, I mean, he's a role player, but he can shoot the
hard.
ball.
I don't even think, honestly, I'm just being quite frank with you boys. Like, I don't think he ends up staying on the team. Like, I don't think any of these guys. I think the Pistons are going to move all of them. I honestly, again, this goes back to the beginning of the show. Like, if they don't move these guys, like if they're adding all these assets and they end up just keeping them, like Josh Richardson, who's played in 8 games, like how does he? I mean, outside of maybe just getting like how does he help you right now? Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I look at it.
He's
personally.
hurt. If he was healthy, I don't know what he looks. He's not healthy, so I don't know how that's going to work. Maybe it's like a Luka thing where you trade for him and he's like, "Hey, I can play on Saturday." It's like, what? I mean, I thought you were hurt the whole year. So maybe we'll see what happens. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. That's probably going to be, you know how it is on trade deadline day. All these deals get done day of. But
yeah. Like tomorrow, it's probably going to be. I mean, honestly, it's a good thing that Trajan's doing this because he's kind of loading up for tomorrow. So, like, if there's a team that's making a big deal and he wants to be a third team in it, like, he's able to he's ready with the assets, ready to go. That's what it feels like the day. It's like the day before you're like going to the bank, like for a sale, and you're like, I'm getting ready to make some moves.
Like, I saw a report. Don't know how credible it is, but like Alonzo Ball trade, for example, he could cost a 2nd-round pick. So you're just stocking up seconds in case, you do have a trade on the table where you have to trade a couple seconds or whatever. Maybe, and that's a piece he feels will stay around for a while. I don't know, but we'll see how that goes.
By the way, Jimmy Butler signed an 2-year extension as well in the deal.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
2 years, $12 million.
2 years, what?
$12 million annually or total?
I don't know. I just see 2 years, 12. I feel like I'm Woj over here.
2 years, 12 a year. I hope two for 12 would be crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts. They're probably. I mean, what is their contract look like now? Especially like if Wiggins is getting traded too, like they probably just lost a good amount of money. So if he's taking a bargain there,
he probably just wants to win, dude.
That's what it is. I mean, Steph's making what, 60 a year? I mean, so they got their money tied up in other places. I don't know. 2 for 12 is kind of crazy. But before the doc joins, did you see the video of Josh Jacobs talking about wide receivers on the Packers? This video to me, Dontavion Wicks, like commenting on it. Let's hear from Josh Jacobs. You tell me how true this statement is, or you think it's baloney. All right.
Then obviously we got a really young group of receivers. All can be really, really, really special. But I think personally we need a guy that's proven to be a number one already. So somebody that's we know it's going to be a little bit more consistent.
That maybe played here before.
If he come at the right price.
I mean, that laugh.
The slide, I've had to talk some tape.
Josh.
See, I mean, okay. What he said is absolutely right. What would you think if Amon-Ra St. Brown, or excuse me, like a Jahmyr Gibbs, if this was like a similar situation and Jahmyr was like, we need a number one wide receiver. Are you for, like, to me, that I don't have an issue with it. He's stating the truth. Maybe you don't go on a podcast or a radio show and say that, but he didn't say anything that's not true. I mean, they need a number one wide receiver, man. They got a bunch of number twos. They do. Maybe threes.
If Dontavion Wicks wasn't ready to look himself in the mirror and realize that he wasn't a wide receiver one in the NFL, well, now's the time. Josh Jacobs did it for you. Jaden Reed. I thought Jaden Reed was going to go ballistic this year. I thought he was going to be a guy that got over 100 catches, could have got 1,200 yards, 8, 9, 10 touchdowns. Like, he had moments where he's really good. Christian Watson, hurt. And when he isn't healthy, or when he is healthy, inconsistent regardless. The best wide receiver as far as a pure receiver they had this year was probably Tucker Kraft, the most consistent. So when I look at this happening with the Packers, I'm so happy that it's happening because it's just more chemistry issues that they're having in Green Bay. You can see that they're a very talented team, but they just can't figure it all out. And it's because of situations like these where Dontavion Wicks just needs to eat a piece of humble pie. They're going to be losing Jair Alexander. Green Bay, I think they're going to be a good team, but they do need a legit wide receiver. Even if Devonta Adams joins there, they still got to show me something. Like after Aaron Rodgers back-to-back MVPs of the Packers, they have been irrelevant when it comes to big games in the NFL long term. So happy. Love the situation. They can bring in a wide receiver one. Great. There's not one right now. So if Dontavion Wicks wants to cry about it, go for it. All power to him. But to your point, Jeff, Josh Jacobs was speaking just absolute truth there. I didn't catch one false. And he even started out by saying, we got a bunch of guys who can do a bunch of great things. Like he was crediting the wide receivers, but then he's keeping it a buck. And that's what they needed to hear.
Proven dude, man. I mean, it's the truth. And we know a guy that speaks nothing but truth, and his emote is live. So if you're a member, if not, you should be a member because you have access to all the great emojis and emotes. We got the new Doc emote. So if you're a member, go ahead and spam the Doc face because he is joining.
There we go.
Covers the Detroit Lions for Sports Illustrated. Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated. You can check that out. Link is in the description. Host of the Detroit Sports Podcast, Lone Wolves Podcast, does great work. Our friend, and as always, brought to you guys by BetUS. That is John Macaroon. What up, Doc?
It's a beautiful Wednesday. Thank you guys deeply. I'm humbled. I love it. Thank you guys. Spam it. And real fast to address the commenters from last week. My wife enjoyed the fact that you all think I look like a garden gnome. We did laugh together. If I'm a garden gnome come to life, no problem. But I appreciate it. It made me laugh. You guys are the best. That's why we do this. And I want to let everybody know that Sports Illustrated is still iconic because the Doc's still part of it. And it's great. What's going on? What do we want to talk about this week? Spam the emojis, baby. I want to see it.
Doc, these are the topics I love approaching you with because you keep it real and you're very honest about this type of stuff. You've seen Twitter. You're lurking, Doc. All the people going back and forth over this Myles Garrett stuff, and the boys are all on alignment. To me, this isn't even a back and forth discussion. It's simply, I think, very, very direct, very clear. It should be unanimous. You get the best defensive player in football, Doc, you sign me up. What do you make of the back and forth, the trust Brad, he would never, versus getting Myles Garrett? What side of the fence are you on? Where are you at, Doc, with it all?
Man, no, GM Doc says you make the calls. The problem is you make the calls. It's a home run situation. This player makes you instantly a Super Bowl caliber football team, the favorite going into 2025, no doubt. I mean, look, think about it. Just think about it from a football perspective that clearly every offensive coordinator is going to want to double Myles Garrett, or he's going to wreak havoc. That's just going to open things up for Aleem McNeil, who will get double-digit sacks, and then Aiden Hutchinson will clearly get north of 17.5 sacks. You just make everybody so much better. But here's the problem. Look, it's fun to talk about. I hope that there are serious conversations about the Lions being significantly, in the mix for deals, making an offer. You got to put it out there. But it's just going to be so costly. I mean, you're probably looking at realistically 2 firsts, a day 2 pick, and a player, because that's probably what, the going rate's going to be for a bidding war that's going to go down for one of the great players. And I think the Browns are going to play it perfectly. They've already started by saying, we're not going to trade him. It's going to be tight. It's going to be really, really tough to outbid teams that have a little bit more capital, because here's part of the reason. You're a good football team. Your first round pick is going to be number 28 to 32, probably for the next couple years. Worse teams can make maybe better offers. So we'll see where Myles Garrett lands up. I hope that the Detroit Lions are in the mix. They need to be, right? We said it all year. When Aiden went down, you tried with Zadarius Smith, but the pass rush was not good enough in the postseason to get the job done. So you upgrade, you make the move. And for all those that maybe are Michigan fans or went to Michigan, you do not include Aiden in any deal for Myles Garrett. It's picks and players, but 97 must stay in Detroit for those Michigan folks that think that you ship off 97.
Yeah, hey, Doc, I want to bring up, because I think literally the day after we had you on the show, I think I was looking at it 5-6 days ago. I think it was last Thursday. The news broke, but David Shaw, being the pass game coordinator here in Detroit. First, I want to see your thoughts on David Shaw, because we think, and at least I'm speaking for the guys here, they could tell me if I'm wrong. We loved the hire. And I had mentioned, I think it might have been the best hire by Dan Campbell out of all of the coaching staff that he had outside of the guys he brought back. I think it was the best hire he made based off of the credentials of David Shaw and kind of around the NFL Everyone loves him. The David Shaw hire, and then also, Doc, I just want to get your feelings now that the staff's almost built outside of the wide receiver coach. What are your thoughts on the staff as a whole as well?
Yeah, and your chat has it perfectly real fast. Look, at this point in time, many people and pundits believe that the picks that the Lions are going to have are going to maybe even struggle to make the team. The team is set in regards to a lot of spots. So I know we're all used to the rookies starting and contributing, but the 24 class really outside of Terrion didn't do a whole heck of a lot. There's more of a developmental track. So I'm all about F them picks. Get stars. You're there. You are a playoff team. You're in the mix. Make the push. And I know general managers don't want to kind of put themselves out there, but 2025 should be the year, because when you start looking at the 26 cap, it's going to be a little tight with all those contracts escalating. So you want to take a big swing, and having a coach with a lot of experience in David Shaw. Look, he got the training with the Broncos, so clearly that means Sean Payton gave and signed off on David Shaw. But look, his experience. He's been a winner everywhere. The work that he did in Stanford. I know the thing that kind of, and we talked about it on Doc and Jock, that's going to come out tomorrow, episode 601. My co-host said, look, it's kind of weird that David Shaw is the passing game coordinator when his offense is kind of really stout and prolific running the football. But I look at it like from the perspective of coaches adapt. He is the reason why he is in Detroit is because he is a John Morton disciple. They've been together. They've worked together with the Raiders back in the day. They know of each other. They're very fond of each other. So this is basically a John Morton hire, that he wants David Shaw part of the staff to be, part of the passing game and making sure that it's going to remain as consistent as possible. But I do think that there will be some influence as well. And you guys got to look at it like, yeah, they have their roles and their titles, but all these coaches meet and they work together. So Scotty Montgomery and David Shaw together, man, that run game is going to be great. And you're going to get better work from Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery taking steps forward. David Shaw is an experienced coach that is going to definitely work well with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, helping everybody, basically just a new voice to take everybody's game to the next level. I think it's a great hire. You knew the Bears were interested as well. So A+ hire. The coaching staff, I think you look at where the starting point is of those that stayed. I think it's great that Hank Fraley is going to be part of the staff. Scotty Montgomery is a future head coach. I think Kelvin Shepard clearly running the defense is going to make things better. I would presume that Deshae Townsend's still part of the staff. I think the secondary getting some continuity with Terry Arnold and Rakestraw. And if Carlton Davis does return, I do think that the work that you're going to do, hopefully, developing in 2025 is going to be key, because I do think they'll make some moves in free agency, but I don't think outside of probably Garrett and maybe, another veteran edge rusher, if that doesn't work out, free agency might be a little bit more quiet. It might be centered more on their own guys. Carlton Davis, Derek Barnes. What do you do with Levi Onwuzurike, Tim Patrick? So free agency might be quiet on that first day. We'll see. And the wild part is the tampering period of all the days. I just looked today because people were messaging nonstop about all the talk about players today. Man, the legal tampering period is March 10th. That's the day before my birthday. All the hoopla is going to start on the 11th, which is my birthday. And then the action, I think, starts the 12th, where all the numbers get figured out and crunched and all that kind of stuff. So March, on my birthday, those 3 days, I'm not going to sleep. I got to be on my phone, and it's going to be a fun birthday to see what kind of early tampering the Lions do to get some players. But I like the coaching staff. I think that the coaching staff needed, when you look at it, take a step back, it needed a little bit of an overhaul, fresh voices, especially when you're running tough practices. And you do realize the loss of Tanner Engstrand is going to have some impact, but you got basically, the person that put the system in place in John Morton. But I'm curious to see how the Jets offense looks year one with Tanner running it.
Yeah, Doc. And one thing you just brought up, free agency. I think something that's kind of picking up a little bit of noise. We're going to talk about it later on the show, but I want to get your perspective. Is Carlton Davis. He's a guy that people are saying, well, got injured probably going to be coming back to Detroit on a low dollar deal, but some other people are saying no, he's going to test the market. What's your opinion as of right now on Carlton Davis' future with the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, no, I think that dude probably is going to be thanking his agent, and his bank account is going to swell. I think that he's going to make north of 15 million because it's just tough. Yeah, I do think that he's going to make annually north of 15 million. I think that he's a player that all you need is two teams. I think Detroit's going to be interested because of the work that he did alongside Tyrion Arnold. It was good. I thought that he did enough to make the trade worthwhile. I thought that, okay, this is a player that can, limit and slow down a little bit the opposing wide receivers. So I do think that the Jets probably would be interested in making a deal, especially the key player that you want to pay attention to is DJ Reed. He's a free agent for the Jets. If he moves on, then you realize that, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson want players from Detroit to kind of help teach the other guys that are there the system and kind of the mentality. So I do think that Carlton Davis will maximize his opportunity to earn. I think that Detroit will make a push. I do think that the odds are in the Lions' favor, being that he's here. He's somebody that I think liked the opportunity that he was given. He was given a chance. The Lions made the initiative to trade for him. So that showed Carlton Davis that the team wanted him. That's a good start. Now, Aaron Glenn, that's going to be the factor. What kind of sales pitch is he going to make? What kind of offer is he going to put out there for Carlton Davis if a move is made? So we'll see. But I do expect that the Lions will try to sell it that Carlton Davis is a big signing when they bring him back.
Yeah, Doc, another player I've seen a little more talking about, I know it's the offseason, so it's the perfect time to talk about these things, would be Graham Glasgow. Because Graham, to me, last year did not play well, and Taylor had his moments, but we've seen Taylor at his best. So I'm not too worried about Taylor. It seemed like he was dealing with injury. What do you make of Graham, though? Did Graham show a little last year that maybe his spot isn't as guaranteed as we initially thought? Maybe with Mahogany going into another year, he could potentially take that spot. What'd you make of Graham this year? And do you think that left guard spot is a spot that Brad Holmes is looking at? Well, in the future, a guy like, who they drafted could step right away in? Or what do you think about Graham?
Yeah, no, I thought that when you look at the numbers, and now at Lions on SI, we are putting together the yearly review. I think we hit quarterback and running back. The offensive line, was touted as being the best in the NFL. But against the biggest foes, the best opponents, the offensive line struggled. Most notably, Graham Glasgow's grades and numbers, he was basically statistically after week 11, 12, one of the worst left guards graded in the whole league. That's not good. So he took a dip. Now, the tough part is the determining factor of how much did the injury contribute to the lack of production and the decline in play. I think it's a good part of it. I think that at least the very least they're going to keep him on the roster, but his position's shaky. And I think that the Lions can upgrade that spot, whether they decide to keep Mahogany there and bring back Zeitler. That'll be intriguing to figure out, something to monitor. But yeah, you're going to pay attention to the likes, and that's why I thought that Vito's column was very much, I think, in line with the theory of, what's important? Development. You got Colby Sorsdahl. You got Coyote Awosika, who they like. You got Giovanni Manu. You got offensive linemen that you also could bring in via the draft that will compete. And I think that Christian Mahogany, you would presume if you move on from Zeitler, that he moves to the right side, and then you have a competition and you find the best left guard. And maybe you start off with Graham Glasgow, but you work in one of the young guys or a draft pick. But there's opportunities to upgrade. And unfortunately, Graham Glasgow got beat pretty much on that fumble, and it was bad. It was not good. The more you watch it, you're just like, oh, my God. He's probably so upset to see the film of the game against the Commanders. Jared Goff, part of the reason that Goff had an awful game was the offensive line gave up a lot more pressures than they would have liked. That's not championship play. And one of the early articles we wrote after the loss was that when the Lions counted on the trenches the most, they flopped.
Yeah, Doc, I do want to bring this up. We had a segment the other day. I think it was actually yesterday we talked about it. And it seems like every year, obviously, like last year, the conversation a lot was, hey, do you go get a wide receiver to replace Josh Reynolds? Obviously, Tim Patrick, a free agent, was on his last year of his deal. And we had the conversation if you should look at, bringing in a wide receiver, a younger wide receiver. Want to get your thoughts on that, like through the draft. My argument on it, Doc, hey, go get someone in the 3rd, 4th round. Brad's had success. He's drafted 3 wide receivers, and the 4th round one turned out pretty well, and the one in the 1st round starting to come into his own now with JMO. So like my thought process was, hey, go get another wide receiver, whether you bring Tim or back or not. You still have a young guy there from the 3rd, 4th round who has more skill, than an Antoine Green out of the 7th, and you're able to build off a rookie deal there. Are you on that side, or kind of where do you fall when it comes to that Tim Patrick kind of position and getting another weapon in the draft here?
Yeah, look, I do think that Tim Patrick, I don't think his numbers matched exactly what Jarrett Reynolds could bring to the table, but I do think that he was emerging. And I think that that's probably part of the benefit of having John Morton is if you bring back Tim Patrick, I think that the continuity could benefit. But yeah, I would think that the big-bodied receiver, the traditional X would suit this offense with some competition. The Lions always seek competition. I think that DPJ was disappointing in that he spent the whole year on the practice squad, never really made an impact. You had Allen Robinson on the roster. So I do think going younger at that spot would be advantageous. But look, at this point in time, you would expect the Lions offense to be very expansive with Jared Goff. The calls are so integral. And if you have one miscommunication, that can be a pick. So I think that you bring one in, you develop them, but I think you go with pretty much outside of a couple of tinkers, maybe another tight end to compete. But outside of left guard and tight end, your offense is pretty set, ready to go. You're just looking for advancements, tweaks to make them, continue to play at a high level. I think you need to involve Sam Laporta more. You get, Jahmyr Gibbs more of a focus. And I think that this offense is going to continue to purr. So, yeah, I can't wait to start diving into the wideouts. Right now, I think everybody, myself included, we're just diving in to the edges and looking at defensive linemen that look good. And I think pretty soon here, probably for me, it'll probably be Thursday, tomorrow, Friday. As I have more time, we'll start diving into the offense. But right now, I think the priority when you look at the draft, defensive line, those edges are deep. And also, too, this is one of those weird classes where it works out good for the Lions. Deep class along the offensive line, you'll start to see more names come out that are really stout and proficient. And the defensive line class, my goodness, there's some great edge rushers the Lions can get at 28 and even in later rounds as well. You start to see as the mock drafts kind of flush out. It's a pretty nice class for the Lions to kind of dig in to restock some needs. And you can get them later in the rounds too. If you want to give up a first round pick for Garrett or somebody else, you will be okay to F them picks this year. It's not a big problem.
Oh, that's a big statement there, Doc.
No doubt. Facts. You don't need, listen, guys, the offense is set. You need to tinker with the defense. And it's one of those deals where I was so like, okay, I'm over the sad phase. I'm excited to watch the Super Bowl, to pick at what the great teams do. But the Lions are right there. They're in the mix. And when you're in the mix, you're still in a much better spot than the Browns. Could you imagine if Aiden Hutchinson came out there and was sitting at 15 tables and was just sitting there going, yeah, I want to leave. That used to be the Lions' MO, was just people talking about how bad it was. Now you're in the mix. Now we're just talking about fine-tuning a couple spots, executing better in the biggest games. You're right there knocking on the doorstep. And with a couple changes, and I know Dan Campbell's is going to be, frustrated with all those injuries, knowing that the opportunity was there to finish the story in New Orleans. But SoFi sounds good too. So let's make the push for SoFi, and I think the Lions will be there. This year, having all those injuries and still winning gave the team a lot more perspective, and I think they're ready for the push. And look, you test Brad Holmes, and he'll come out, I think, with he'll ace the test, and he'll bring in free agents, maybe not as big a stars as I would want, but I think they'll find a class in the draft and in free agency that's going to get this football team at least to double-digit wins and another crack at the Super Bowl next year. 25 is a big year for the Lions.
Doc, I know they just asked about Graham and Tim Patrick, but just to kind of keep the free agent questions going, a guy that we had high expectations for, unfortunately, dealt with the injury bug again this year. Iffy Melifonwu, what is your opinion on his future with the Detroit Lions as well?
That's a tough one, right? I mean, he looks like a Brad Holmes special, right? You know what I mean? In regards to somebody that's hurt all the time but got potential. I'm a little disappointed in what his season ended up being, but he's got potential. So it's one of those deals where it's going to be tough it's going to be a tough decision, right? I look at that decision and I say, Does that have an opportunity for him to come back? So we'll see. And again, you guys are right. Then I definitely look at the stadiums that I got biased there. The next year's Super Bowl is in Santa Clara at Levi Stadium. Man, I don't want to go there. But you could avenge some losses. I want to go to SoFi. That's my vision has always been SoFi. I have never been there, and everybody that goes there says it's great. So, man, I don't want to go to Levi Stadium. Gosh darn it, you chat. You could just let me tell fake stories. But
you better Doc. You better lock your car out there.
Yeah, no, right. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go
too.
there. I don't want to go there at all. But you know what? The handsomer I look, maybe I'll be treated with a king's welcome. You never know. I'm handsome. I could fit a certain demographic there that might take care of me. You never know. I'm all for it. I'm all for anybody that wants to show me around Santa Clara. We'll see if it changes up a little bit in 12 months. We'll see how it all changes out. But you guys, popped the balloon. I was thinking SoFi for such a long period of time. But you know what? In the end, that's the site. Again, that's the site of another, the universe. Maybe the site of the toughest Lions loss is Levi Stadium. So maybe you get to finish the story there. So we shall see, as we turn the page. But yeah, that's a tough decision, guys. If Atu was talented, it's one of those deals where you don't ever want to see a guy that you give up on go shine somewhere else. And I truly believe he would be somebody that Aaron Glenn would call. They have a close relationship. They've talked a lot. So it's a tough call, but I think he ends up, unfortunately, going somewhere else because you just can't. The best ability is availability. And how are you going to sign a guy to what value that plays 3 games a year? That's what he's contributed for you. So I think you just say, you know what, you get a fresh start somewhere else. You hope that he goes to the AFC so he doesn't end up, but I will say this. If there is a player that would come back to haunt you, it would be Iffy because he's got the talent. The problem is I am of the opinion that, Brad has not taken a lot of heat for Emmanuel Moseley, for Ifeatu Melifonwu, for Marcus Davenport. You knew these guys were injured, and yet, and it's Rakestraw. His rookie year is a wash. He struggled with injury at the tail end of his last season in college. You draft, you need guys that at the same time that at least in 2023-24, a lot of the guys that you took risks on, hoping that would not get hurt, they got hurt. So Ifeatu Melifonwu, may end up being that overcorrection, but he's got a chance, unfortunately, to succeed somewhere else. But for whatever reason, some players just in some spots, their first go around, they just always get hurt. So I think he ends up because you got Branch and Kirby Joseph, and you could probably just get another young developing player in the draft.
So tomorrow, Coach of the Year. It's official. We'll get to find out who's winning it, Dan Campbell or Kevin O'Connell. Where are you at with the doc? Because we're going to talk about it later in the show. But do you think Dan has it's locked up, or do you think it's going to be closer than people think? Where are you at with Coach of the Year?
I would have to think Dan Campbell's right in the mix, right? How are you going to give it to Kevin O'Connell? I think the last game was the game in which I thought it was kind of determined heavily. Many people could look at it and say Kevin O'Connell had a nice run with the Vikings based on expectations, but the closest competition probably maybe Dan Quinn if it's not Dan Campbell. But I just look at it like 15 wins in the regular season. You see all the injuries. That has to be a huge factor for voters saying, wow, you had, and plus that long winning streak right there gives them a close chance. But, I know a lot of people would vote Quinn as well. So it's going to be, one of those deals neck and neck. But you just look at just on paper. Dan Quinn, first year, I understand getting the Commanders back to where they need to go. But you also look at what Dan Campbell had to go through. All those injuries, you lose literally your best player, your franchise defender in Aiden Hutchinson, and you still go on the midst of a nice winning streak. So I think that at the end of the day, we get to see Dan Campbell win the award. And that's probably, maybe Jared Goff in the mix for Walter Payton Man of the Year would be nice as well. but that's more of a long shot. No chance for Goff to win the MVP, but I do think that at least one Lion for 15 wins, he would have got my vote. So I'm just going to manifest it. Dan Campbell, Coach of the Year.
Doc, how are we thinking about the Super Bowl? What side are we taking here? What are your thoughts on this whole Super Bowl? You've had a couple weeks now to think about it. Where are we going with that?
Yeah, I love it. I'm watching it. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to order up a bunch of food. I'm going to enjoy it top to bottom. It's my favorite day of the year. Wake up, and then you just watch the 6-hour pregame. The commercials will be fun to always talk about, to see how bad the marketing people do. This game's going to be close, very competitive. I think that you look at it, Saquon Barkley is an X factor. I love what he brings to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts can go toe-to-toe with Mahomes. I think that he's got good chemistry with Smith and A.J. Brown. I love the defense of the Eagles. It's one of those deals. Will the officials overcorrect because the eyes of the world? I mean, first and foremost, how guilty do you got to be to put out a statement and saying it's preposterous that you guys think we're all cheating against the Chiefs? That was crazy to see that official statement from the officials, but maybe with all the eyes of the whole world on the officials, maybe they're a little bit less likely to be favorable to the Chiefs. So maybe a couple calls go the Eagles' way, but in the end, I'm of the opinion whoever has the football last wins the game. I think it's going to come down to the wire. It's hard to always bet against Mahomes, but I think that the better football team is the Eagles. And if they play to their capabilities, the Eagles win this Super Bowl. You always go to the battle of the trenches. Offensive line, defensive line heavily favor the Eagles. And I just think that the one factor, though, okay, so if you ask me, it's going to be 35-31 Eagles. But you give Mahomes any openings, you make mistakes, you don't bring your A game. Jalen Hurts has a couple of turnovers. You don't stomp on the Chiefs and end them. It's a 60-minute game. You play great for 54 minutes and you slack off the last 6, Mahomes will be right there to put a dagger in your heart. So you got to go take it. And I think that the Eagles will be the Broad Street Bullies and win the Super Bowl.
Hey, Doc, I know we're talking a lot about Myles Garrett and him hopefully coming to the Detroit Lions. That's the best case scenario. I'm going to flip it. Where's the worst case situation for Detroit Lions fans for Myles Garrett to land? Where's the last team you want to see Myles Garrett go?
Any team in the NFC North, Bears or Packers or Vikings. I don't know if the Vikings will make a serious push.
What about the Commanders, Doc? What about the team that beat you?
Yeah, the Commanders. Worst case scenario is in the division because then Jared Goff's going to run for his life. And then you're going to potentially face the opportunity to go on the road to start the postseason. Winning the division was nice, and you started to see the advantages. It unfortunately didn't go their way against the Commanders, but playing at Ford Field is an advantage. If he goes to the Commanders, that's also going to be an issue. That's worst case scenario part B. I think that he's going to like it there. I think that when you see the pitch that Dan Quinn could make, he could be that final piece for Commanders defense that has a great head coach that's defensive minded. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be intriguing to see where he lands. But guys, I think all the heavyweights, the 49ers, the Eagles, Commanders, you would think too, though, that there's a component here in regards to cap. I look at it like if you want to go and stay in the conference that you're familiar with, Patriots are nice too. You get to go with Mike Vrabel. You get to go with a guy with swagger. They got a lot of salary cap space, if my memory serves correctly, and they got an opportunity to build a nice football team. Now, they're a little bit further away, but they have also an opportunity to reward him down the road with a nice contract as well. So we shall see where he ends up, but I do think he ends up with a major contender, and I would put it at the favorite right now. Why not? The Detroit Lions, baby. Brad Holmes is going to make the ultimate push. He knows that's the guy. I mean, you literally do not have the opportunity to make a push for a world championship. And I think that once he sees the attitude, and hopefully there's only one other addition that gives the Lions a little bit of an edge. I don't know. I never asked, but hopefully Zadarius Smith is like, this is football heaven. Makes the recruiting pitch for Myles Garrett to come. And let's reunite Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett, and let's see what happens.
So, Doc, I know you're the right person to ask these types of questions because it's a difficult question, and I think it's a question that fans don't want to think about. But I'm going to give you a hypothetical here, which could happen. We'll see. But the Lions have guys they're going to have to re-sign in the next couple of years. Okay, you have big contracts going out to guys like Hutch, Kirby, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta coming down the pipeline, Jameson Williams. If it was the Doc, A, do you believe Brad can really find a way to keep everyone? And B, if he can't, who's the odd one out of the group, Doc, in your opinion?
Yeah.
Talking from a GM perspective here.
Yeah. GM perspective. That's my perspective. Look, no, you cannot keep everybody. I think that you value Aiden. He's going to make $35 million. The other problem is Myles Garrett could make 50. So you're going to invest $90 million on your defensive line. Why not? It's worth it. I think. And then with Aleem, that takes it north of $100 million. But I think that it's all going to be predicated on, look, if they make a big splash and it's Myles Garrett, you probably are going to have a tough conversation about J-Mo and Brian Branch. Those will be the tough ones because there'll be competition. So the toughest part is not knowing what you're going to offer them. I think the Lions will make respectable offers to everybody. Kirby, the organization loves him. So he's getting paid. He is getting paid. He's a ball hawk. You don't let guys that can get you 10 interceptions a year, every year, you don't let them walk out the door. Kirby represents everything the Lions are about: swagger, nastiness, and gets interceptions. So he's getting a contract. Now, Brian Branch, I think he's got to do a little bit more. His second half of the year, I thought he tailed off a little bit, a couple more penalties that he would like, and had some moments where I thought he got some communication issues. The film will dictate that he had a good year, but not, I think, the year that I think he's going to have in 25. He'll definitely rebound with the competitive nature that he's got. Wide receivers are tough because you're going to see, potentially, Jameson Williams. When you start to decide if you wait, it's just going to cost you more. It could get north of $30 million a year. So there's a thinking maybe you lock him up now, but you have flexibility. You can just play him on the 5th-year option, so you can extend it out before you make a decision. I'm always of the opinion, as the general manager-minded thinking podcaster, you can replace wideouts pretty much easier than ball hawking safeties and cornerbacks. So I think that the toughest decisions will end up being Jameson Williams, Brian Branch, this year, Derek Barnes, those kind of guys, Levi Onwuzurike. But no, it's not possible to pay everybody. And here's why. First, it starts with your coaches, and then it starts with your players. When you have the grit mentality, you're a winner, and you have the secrets of an organization that, hey, was great on offense and great on defense and did some things and had some ability to have success, coaches and general managers look to those kind of players. So it would indicate that some of the Lions are going to start getting some fat free agent offers elsewhere. And pretty much most players like when the offers come out in their favor at a high rate. So I would expect that their bankrolls are going to grow. Some will be in Detroit, some won't. But guys, it's okay. I know everybody that's a fan online, their answer is always, but what about all these guys that we could lose? One Super Bowl before I die, and I don't care if they fall off the map for the rest of all time. But I'm of the opinion that when you have the ability to evaluate talent, when you have the ability to establish what you want in a player, you can go find it. I think the Lions could win a Super Bowl, maybe compete. I don't care. My personal opinion, I don't care about sustained success. I feel like that's code for let me stay and not have to put my nuts on the table and declare when we're going to win. This is the year that Brad Holmes has to cash it in, because I don't want to be the Bills. I don't want to be the Steelers. I don't want to go multiple years where you don't get to the Super Bowl. I think now you have to ascend to the point where you compete to win the Super Bowl. Otherwise, blow it up and start over until you can decide that you can consistently try to get to the postseason and win. I think the Lions, when in the past, when they would fall off, they'd fall off for a decade. Now, if you win a Super Bowl, let's say in 25, you can, slow it down a little bit. 26, you can kind of, compete, but maybe don't have to win it. And then you get back at it in 27, 28. Like, I think that there's going to be, in my opinion, multiple windows with Brad Holmes. But at first, you got to satisfy the need. This fan base has never experienced the Lions in the Super Bowl. So it's a different position than other teams. This has never, ever happened. The Lions have never been in the Super Bowl. So get that out of the way. Do what you can. And I think I have personally more respect. This is what was my real thesis of the podcast tomorrow. I would have more respect if they took a swing and said, all right, let's go get a Myles Garrett. Let's go get a T. Higgins. Let's go add as many talented players as possible. 3-4 more players that are all world to this roster. And 25 gives you the chance. And I don't care if 26, you got to lop off some guys because of the cap. You took a swing. You took the swing. And unfortunately, we have to say it, and it hurts to say it, but at the trade deadline this year, Zadarius Smith was okay, but not the move that you needed to make. You needed to go swing harder. You needed to get Trey Hendrickson. You needed to figure out somebody else that could have come here and get you over the hump. It didn't happen. Could you handle it again in 25? I can't. No way. I'm not patient. I'm not trying to sit here. I don't care about sustained success. I mean, because in my opinion, and this will be the thing that upsets everybody, you only have sustained success in the NFL. And history will tell you, sustained championship success is if you have the best 1 or 2 quarterbacks in the world, and you don't have that. You don't have Mahomes, you don't have Lamar, you don't have Josh Allen. So you're not going to be a 4, 5, and 6 year Super Bowl winning team. You're going for 1, and then you start all over. That's just the facts.
Damn. Doc, I just said it the other day. I love that you said that. All right, go ahead, Boone.
I just say, Doc, to one of your points there, I don't know if I'm frozen or not. It looks like I am.
You're good.
Just with all the contracts and everything, we haven't really seen it from Brad, but like franchise tag, like that comes into play. Do you think Brad ever like looks into that with some of these guys, especially with like you really do start getting into these contract conversations with the way he's drafted? That's got to come into play at some point, correct?
Yeah, 26. The cap tightens because all those contracts from first Panay and Amon-Ra and Goff, they start hitting escalators. I think one of the chat can because I know I laughed. At one point, Goff's cap number is 69 million. I know it's like his cap number will be 69 million. I know I saw it and I know I was going to laugh. And so I had to say it somewhere, but it's going to be super high. It's just going to be tough. So, I don't believe that, the people that say the cap is not real. Yeah, you can extend it and you can get it, but you have smaller windows to try and do it because what will happen is, I think the word that people will start to get to know is Brad giveth and Brad taketh away. How are they going to handle when Brad goes to Jared and goes, yeah, Jared, we got to restructure, bro. We got to kind of spread some of it out for another 5 years. So I know you're going to make, this much this year, but we're going to have to cut that down. And he better take it. Like you better be a team guy, better not cause no problems because you need some more cap space in 26, but 25 should be okay. Even if you get Myles Garrett, you can spread it out and find ways. And they got good. They're starting off 48 million, 9th in the league. They have room for flexibility to maneuver and also restructure and also make some tough decisions. Maybe you lop off Reader. We did an article, Lions on SI. Christian did a great job. He didn't exactly title the headline the way I wanted, but because I always tell him, put the number, how much you can totally save when that's what we did last year. Put the number you can save by all the cuts, but you can go check it out. Lions on SI. We put a couple names of 5-6 guys the Lions can cut and get 5-6 million here, 5-6 million there to offset some problems. But 25, you're okay. You're good to try to take a swing. 26, it gets a little bit tougher. That's why the swing is the swing. That's why going for it in 25 is imperative. Not detrimental, not like all world deathly, but much more difficult to swing for a Myles Garrett in 26 than this year.
Boone, you want to follow up?
Yeah, I mean, I was just that was kind of my thing. I guess I could break up too. Like, I guess the boys want to know about the Pistons, Doc.
Yeah, Doc, I want to ask you about that. What's been going on with the Pistons trade deadlines tomorrow? What do you make of Trajan Langdon, man? Tell me, Doc. Last time we talked about it, you were a little hesitant. Can I get Doc? Where are we at, Doc?
Yeah. No. All right. I got credit from Montour. That's great. It was 69 million. Of course, that's what I said. I said restructure. Of course. All I know is I saw that 1 year it will be 69 million. So give me credit. Woohoo. Listen, I'll let you guys worry about the cap and all that. I pay someone to do that for me. I just know the top end that, hey, they're in decent shape or not decent shape. That's all I need. All the geekniks can look at all the intricacies of who can win, and it's all there. That's not my deal. The numbers, I know 2026, 69.6 million. See?
Oh my.
That number for some reason sticks in my head. I'm not sure exactly why, but I think there's news breaking galore. Shams is doing his thing, going crazy. Pistons, look, they're restructuring, making moves, doing their thing. I'm more in the how the F did the Lakers get Luka kind of conversation. I would be pissed if I lost $100 million because a team called me fat and publicly doesn't like me. They put out basically that I'm lazy, that I don't, and I'm still dropping 25. Like, if you're lazy and fat and still can drop 25 points, my God, I feel bad for Dallas fans, but how lucky are the Lakers? You got to look at that. They just landed a generational talent and only had to give up a guy 32 years old, 31, that people call street clothes. But that's here nor there. I just wanted to say that the Lakers are effing lucky. A team calls you and says, would you like, how would you be interested in getting Luka Doncic? Sure. How many first rounders? 4, 5, 6? What are we talking here? No, we're going to need the legendary Max Christie and a 2029 first and AD. And you're sitting there going, say that again? What? Are you high? Like, are you, that's the deal you want? Yeah, we're taking it. Yeah. Call me back in 5 minutes, because you hang up the phone and you start laughing. This Nico asshole is the dumbest GM in the history of the NBA. You didn't even want 1 first rounder and AD. That's it. That's the dumbest general manager probably ever walking the face of the earth, but they're out there. You should have got 4 first round picks minimum for Luka. Now the Pistons, look, man, they're an average football team. They've caught my attention. I like to watch them. They got to get back to playing a little bit more defense. I love the fact that Cade is emerging, proving everybody wrong. I thought that Cade was going in the direction of kind of being overrated, but everyone like Corey would tell me, John, calm down. It's only 1 year. You got to get shooters around him. So I listened and said, okay, you're right. You probably could. And to me, I love Trajan Langdon because you can see he's got an eye for talent. You can see that there's moves. You can see that JB Bickerstaff has a pulse. Like, I don't know if someone needed to slip Monty Williams a Viagra to see if anything would stimulate. He was just sitting there doing whatever and stealing money. Like, I didn't know if the guy had a pulse. Bickerstaff has a pulse. He can speak eloquently. He can speak in a way where you want to listen. I love the spacing. I love the fact that they got guys that, hey, what a novel idea. Let's get guys that can kind of shoot over 33% from the three-point line. Let's get guys like Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris that can help Cade Cunningham be Cade Cunningham. So I love the Pistons. I love what they're doing. My trust level's high. And I also love what the Red Wings are doing. But the Pistons are back, baby. And I think that you recognize clearly, and I think everyone's always like, man, Doc, you're always so hard on the Pistons, because I love all the teams in Detroit. But I know bad general managership. I'm 45 years old. And when I was calling out Troy Weaver before anybody was, I was like, that guy sucks. And I know it for a fact. I said it to Jeff when he was at the old joint. I said it to everybody. I'm like, that general manager sucks because he's one single track minded and he's getting all these centers. He sucks. Like, he does not know what he's doing. And everyone's like, oh, let Troy cook. Let's wait and see. Let's wait about, he drafted Killian Hayes. Like, excuse me, he was never going to win. He was never going to shine. Killian Hayes was a bust from the moment that the commissioner said Hayes to be drafted at number 7. So I was screaming from the high heavens that guy sucks and Troy Weaver sucks. And let's get this moving. And I had to sit there and listen to people attack me. Oh, no, Killian, he can cook. Yeah, he can cook my ass. He got cooked his way ass out of town. And you lost a fan in the dock for a good 6 months to a year. But I'm back on the bandwagon, baby. I'm watching. I'm into it. I love what I'm seeing. And I love guys like Shawn that you're going to have next, and the people that, that watch basketball that commit to that. I absolutely love it. I'm more of an NFL guy. But I know that the old regime was terrible from the minute that they started doing their moves. It made no sense. How many effing centers does one team need? Like, I'm talking about every single retread that was out there that was injured was on this Pistons roster. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. These are not the moves that you got to be making. And then all the fans were just like, no. He's going to resurrect the bum from the Warriors that they developed and let leave. Guys, if the Warriors let you leave, you're a certified BOMB or BUM. So to me, this is different. This looks like an established general manager that can do some things and put something in place. And so hopefully this year is the first year of many more to come. But the Pistons are back, baby. Let's get on the bandwagon. Isaiah Stewart, let's go. Another OG bad boy.
There you go. Hey, we appreciate you as always, Doc. Check out the Doc on X. He's tweeting. I noticed you're tweeting a lot more. You got a YouTube channel now, Doc. You guys are, we're getting Doc. He's continuing to grow.
Guys, like I said,
you're doing
you
good.
know,
You're doing
I'm
great
channeling
stuff.
my inner rage that's just coming, ready to come out, that just needs to just talk a mile a minute and share all my passions galore. But guys, come on. I am married with 2 children, and if I had the secret
congrats,
dungeon
Doc.
downstairs, I'd share it. I mean, at this point in my life, if I was putting a ball gag in my mouth every week, I would share it. I'm okay. At 45 years old, I'm doing great, and I'm open. I'm an open book. That rage, I don't got. I got the strong hetero rage.
Yeah, well, you know what? Glad you clarified that. I'm glad you clarified that, Doc. Follow the Doc on Twitter at Detroit Podcast.
No Diddy, no doubt.
Of course, no Diddy, of course. And we appreciate you as always. We'll catch you next Wednesday.
I look forward to it, guys. Talk soon.
There you go. Spam the Doc emotes. They're live for all the members out there. There you go. The one, the only, Mr. John Macaroon, doing some great stuff. Let me get that. And also, as always, brought to you guys by BetUS. We have another special guest to help us break down the trade deadline for the Detroit Pistons. Things are happening live on the show, so it's perfect timing. We get to welcome back Shawn Murphy, the man, the myth, the legend, host of From Half Court, which you guys can subscribe to and give him a follow on Twitter as well. But let's get him in here. Shawn Murphy. Shawn, how you doing, my friend?
Jeff, Booner, Lucas, it's good to see you boys. Thank you so much for having me. This is the craziest trade deadline in NBA history, and we still have 16 hours to go. I've hardly slept this week. I've just been watching Sham's Twitter feed pretty much nonstop. I can't even go get pizza before the show, and Jimmy Butler gets traded while I'm in the drive-thru. That's where we are.
Drive-through pizza,
dude. America's a great place. Let me tell you about it.
Come on now, not too many joints like that in Toledo.
No.
I think I'm gonna have to take.
It's a Little Caesars drive-through.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I was gonna say Little Caesars has drive-through forever. Class.
Never used one. You know what?
No, I haven't.
It's incredible. It's really.
I do it. I used to do it all the time.
It's cheap pizza, and it's not worth getting out of the car for. So the fact that they know that and have a drive-through, great business decision by the Illich family. Going through a whole lot more, but at least they got the drive-thrus at Little Caesars location.
Yeah. Agreed there, Shawn. Let me ask you. We'll start with the first trade initially. KJ Martin. We were talking in our group chat earlier. Me and Boone getting a post up about it, and we're struggling. Like at first, you see it, and it's KJ Martin 2 second-round picks, but then you're thinking, well, what happened? Like it was literally just a one-team trade, essentially. It was just like, here you go. Here's KJ. We need to shed some salary. Here's 2 second-round picks. What'd you make of the first trade by Trajan Langdon to kind of start the deadline there?
Yeah, I mean, part of the fact that the Pistons are the only team in the league with cap space, the benefit of that is they have a lot of the cards and hold a lot of power during this deadline. Deals aren't going to get done unless Detroit is there to help facilitate them. And this is also a trade that's setting up other trades and other moves because, for Detroit, it's a great benefit because you get, even if you keep him, KJ Martin, he was a first-round pick for a reason. Kenyon Martin's son, a young player who's shooting pretty well this season, potential depth, at the wing. If you potentially move him, that's someone in an asset that you can use. You get second-round picks, which, before what just happened here a minute ago, Lonzo Ball was probably the Pistons' top target. The report was that they would want second-round draft capital, and then Lonzo Ball actually just leveraged that into a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Bulls. So that means he can no longer be traded. He's there through 26-27. That doesn't mean there aren't other deals to be made. In fact, the Pistons were also just part of Jimmy Butler just got moved to the Golden State Warriors in a 14 trade that sends Josh Richardson and Penny, there's a whole lot of things. So I know you asked about the KJ Martin trade, and I apologize for going on this whole thing.
No, you're good.
But the point of it is it's all intertwined together and it's working towards a bigger plan because, I was listening to the show earlier where you guys were talking about how, the Pistons have to make a move or you're going to be disappointed. Well, now the Pistons literally have to make a move because with what they've done today, they have more players on their roster than they're legally allowed to. So therefore, one could conclude they're going to use that to make a trade or of some fashion.
Yeah, Shawn, who do you think? I guess I'll just ask straight up, like, who do you think now that Lonzo is re-signed or extended with the Bulls, do they target, and who would you want them to bring in going forward after this trade deadline's over? Who, like, if you're like, I want this guy to be in a Pistons uniform tomorrow after 3:00.
Yeah, the Pistons, they straight up need another point guard who can help run the offense and make a shot. For me, now that Lonzo Ball's off the market, to the number one guy that I would target if I were the Pistons is Colin Sexton on the Jazz. I think he's someone that gives you pretty dynamic, offensive ability, has a pretty quick burst, not very far off of Jaden Ivey. As far as that respect goes, you probably wouldn't have to give up very much. The Jazz are a team that's very much playing capture the flag, Cooper flag, that is. So, I think it makes a lot of sense.
I see
for
what
both.
you did there, Shawn.
Yeah, that was my favorite. That was my favorite tanking phrase. There's always something every year. Capture the flag is my favorite in a long time. But I think Colin Sexton would be a really good move that helps this team, like win now and not have to give up anything substantial going forward. Because I think if you're Trajan Langdon, if you're the Pistons, you want to help get this team more competitive. But I also don't think you want to make too many like earth-shattering moves. Because even though they're like still on a playoff, like on a push for a playoff spot, this is still like an evaluating period. I think for Trajan, you want to evaluate a lot of these guys when the pressure really gets cranked up. So, I mean, listen, these are good problems to have. This is the first time in a long time we're talking about the Pistons actually trying to get better at the deadline in a way that actually matters.
Klotz?
Oh, my bad. I don't know why. My bad on that one, boys. When you look at it, Shawn, let's say they go down through the worst case situation, and Trajan makes a move, but it's nothing really truly impactful, more so just force to deal players. Where do you think this Pistons team stands, even if they don't make a move? I mean, they're sitting 6th in the East right now, and there's a real shot that if they continue playing good basketball, they could finish top 5 in the East. What's your projection long term, even if they do not make a move that fans are excited about?
Yeah, I still think they're firmly in the play for that 6th spot in the East, if not like, very high, like one of the high ranking seeds in the play-in. I do think that we are starting to see the impact of not having Jaden Ivey in the lineup, especially when, the Pistons are going after, they're playing Cleveland tonight. They've played, other teams who are, who are able to light it up from 3, but are also very capable defensively. And, they're starting to put more pressure on a Cade Cunningham. So in my opinion, I think they would be fine and they would still, be able to be competitive. But I think in order to, truly maximize whatever this season could be, I think something of some fashion has to be done. Just somebody who can take that pressure off of Cade and, set up the offense, but also get some offense for himself. Because when Jaden Ivey went out, that was a massive blow, to what the Pistons could potentially do this season.
Yeah, Shawn, the one thing for me with the whole CJ, I hear a lot of CJ McCollum talk. The only thing, like the contract to me, that's the only thing I'm a little more hesitant. He's owed 30 this season, 30 next season. It's going to be hard to try and flip him with making that type of money. What do you make of it? A guy like CJ McCollum, do you think there's some legitimate hype behind it, or you out on it? Where are you at?
I mean, I think there's better players on the market to go out and get. I mean, don't get me wrong, CJ McCollum is a more than capable player. He's averaging at 33. He's still averaging 22 points a game. Part of that, I'd argue, is good stats, bad team, because the Pelicans have been having an abhorrent season. If the Pistons were to get like a first round pick in order to get CJ McCollum, then it's something I would be a little bit more open to, just because that would be a benefit for the Pistons. And, being honest with the way the Pelicans are heading, a first round pick from them would probably be pretty valuable right now. So I think it's all about what you would get in return. But I mean, to your point, the Pistons, they have salary decisions to make this offseason about, Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. And although those wouldn't necessarily interfere with, with CJ McCollum, like on the roster, like the Pistons are going to want to be more judgmental with how they're using their space. Like if the Pistons were having the year everyone thought they were, where it was like, oh, maybe a play-in tournament spot, but still kind of the bottom of the East, it'd be fine if we took on, pretty much anyone. But if the Pistons want to be competitive and, make a playoff push, then I think you do have to be more selective with who you take on. So I think you could do worse than CJ McCollum, but it's not like you're getting the CJ McCollum from Portland by any means.
Yeah, Shawn, do you think there is a world where like Trajan, like obviously he makes a move, but then he's like, hey, I just want to wait until the free, like, is there any big free agents that you think that they can pair with Cade this offseason? Or is that just like I guess like a long shot thinking that they might add someone to go with Cade? Because obviously there's still Ivy, but like, is that like Trajan's like, hey, like we want to make sure we're still saving money for this free agent class? Because I feel like with Troy, it was like every year it was like pushed back, pushed back, pushed back. It feels like this might be actually a free agency where it's like, let's spend and actually go for it next year.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not someone in free agency, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons made some form of major trade this offseason. I think it's kind of similar to where the Houston Rockets are at right now, where reports suggest that they want to stand pat and just see what they have for the rest of the season. I think if the Pistons can make additions at this deadline without having to give up any of their young players, like if they can still see what they have in Nassar Thompson the rest of the season, if they can still, continue to evaluate like Ron Holland, Jalen Duren, everyone on the roster, I think that's, kind of an ideal spot for them. And then this summer, once you do see what these guys look like in a playoff setting, because that's where the true evaluation begins, is when the pressure is cooked, when teams are making adjustments about you, when you're hitting that true adversity of a playoff series, that's when real evaluation can happen. So I think from that point, I think, especially when you consider the fact that, Trajan's only draft pick in this core is Ron Holland. Everyone else is Troy Weaver's guys. So when they're not your guys, you're more willing to move on. And, we don't know how he evaluates these guys in comparison to, Troy Weaver's regime. So I definitely would expect Detroit to try and make some form of move this summer, to bolster around Cade. And I think a lot of stars throughout the league are realizing, especially after the Luka trade, that anyone can be moved if Luka Doncic can be moved.
And kind of reverting back to the trade deadline now, Shawn, you mentioned there's 16 hours left, and you brought up Colin Sexton. Is there anybody that you think should be worth kind of watching as this deadline gets closer that people might not be talking about enough?
I mean, honestly, the fact that Kevin Durant is even getting listened to offers is, from Phoenix is of massive consequence. There was talk earlier today, obviously the last couple of days that the Warriors could potentially, want to make a move for that. But, look out for teams like, what if Kevin Durant ends up in Miami? They just moved on from Jimmy Butler, got some assets. That's a move that they've always wanted to make. Phoenix to me is just, especially with, how firmly they are over the limit as far as salary cap goes, with how aggressive they've been, with this nucleus that they've got, and really how strapped they are with, with Bradley Beal having a no trade clause. I know Devin Booker just broke the all-time Phoenix scoring record for the Suns, but it's going to be crazy to watch what happens there, because I mean, for all the people talking about, Devin Booker coming to Detroit, the only way that there's even a shot for something like that is if it continues to fall apart and there's continued dissension in Phoenix, and Kevin Durant's a significant domino and aspect in that.
Yeah, Shawn, I do want to ask you just for, I guess, clarification, because I don't have a full grasp on what it is, to be honest. Like the Pistons first round pick situation. He's Trajan's stacking up second round picks. What's like their control? How does Trajan work these first round picks? Like, what is he allowed to move? What is he not allowed to move? Like, explain that, because we know in today's NBA how important first round picks are in general to trying and acquiring these big time players.
Yeah, so the biggest hurdle the Pistons have right now with their first round picks is the fact that they essentially have had a protected first round pick that they've owed to the New York Knicks for a number of years that just straight up hasn't conveyed, because the Pistons have been well in the lottery or well within the rights of the protection for them to, still have their pick. Essentially, when they made the move on draft night to go and acquire Isaiah Stewart, they gave the Knicks a first-round pick in return of some fashion with high protections each year. So essentially, the Pistons are in a very difficult spot where they can't really move many or really any of their first-round picks until that conveys. And so, more than likely with the Pistons making the playoffs this season with their success, more than likely they are not going to have, their first round pick as a result. So that's why it is important for them to, try and add to that. And, even if they can't necessarily get, first round picks, second round picks are still something that have a lot of value, especially with the way that the salary cap works. It's essentially a hard salary cap. Think of the higher you are over the cap, the more severe your penalties are, the less moves that you can make. So, those second round picks are going to have more value because teams are going to try to get more out of those second round picks. So, again, I think the Pistons initially were, one of those teams interested in Lonzo Ball. Trajan Langdon obviously had Ball in New Orleans while he was there in the Pelicans front office. But again, it's still something that would have a lot of value to a Utah Jazz. Even the Thunder just made a trade today to go get some more second round picks. The Thunder, who only have 9 losses, are making trades to go get picks.
Hey, Shawn, I just want to get your thoughts. Just outside of the trade deadline and everything, obviously the Pistons are 6th in the East. What do you think happens the rest of the season here? I know we don't really know the extent of what happens here in the next 24 hours, but say they stay put or just maybe add a small piece. What do you think they do? Do they make the playoffs, play in? Like, how do you think this season wraps up?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be playing consequential basketball no matter what here in the months of March and April. I personally do think that this team is more than capable of holding on to that 6th seed. If they, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some form of slide and they ended up in the play-in tournament. They kind of really are on the edge there. Teams like Orlando, they got, Paolo back and starting to get some of their players more healthy. So they're going to be more dangerous, although they're on a 4-game losing streak. So I could be wrong about that. More teams could be starting to tank. Philly could potentially be getting better. So all that to say that 6th seed might be hard to hold on to. But having said that, I think the goal for this Pistons team this offseason, I know this sounds like such a low bar, but just go get a playoff win. I mean, for the love of God, guys, it's been since 2008 since these guys have won, since the Detroit Pistons have won a playoff game. That is the longest drought in the NBA. If they can break that drought, that is a huge success of a season for the Pistons, especially considering the fact that they're coming off of their worst season in franchise history. So to me, that's the goal, is at least win a playoff game. I mean, if the playoffs were to start today, they would have the New York Knicks in the first round, which I think would be one of the most fun first round matchups in the league. I would absolutely, it's appointment viewing, would be super fun to watch, the James Edwards Bowl. But, it would just be, it'd be a true test because that's a physical team that's very similar to the identity and the brand of basketball that the Pistons play. So, again, it's just, we're going to learn a lot about what these guys are made of and who is actually going to be around Cade going forward and who could potentially be moved to go and get an asset to put around Cade.
Well, Shawn, we appreciate you as always. Keep up the great work. You can follow Shawn on X at Shawn Halfcourt. Shawn, I'm going to be texting you tomorrow. Going to be a busy day.
We're going to be in touch. If you want to talk more Pistons this week, let me know, man. We'll be glad to come on.
Yeah, we're going to rely on you, Shawn. There you go. Shawn Murphy. Appreciate you, my guy. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate it, Shawn.
Shawn Murphy, check him out from Halfcourt, doing some great things over there. He's crushing it. Bright dude. And tomorrow's going to be a big day, man. I'm excited for it. We'll be covering it here. Caleb, he texted earlier. He said, I'm locked in for the deadline. So content-wise, he's dialed. All right. I know the boys will be on high alert tomorrow as well. But I did want to bring up, I guess we could go into some of the trade deadline targets because based on what he said, right, CJ McCollum, like where I'm at, and it sucks because Lonzo was a guy that I talked about yesterday, and I think Lonzo right now with the Pistons would be awesome, especially with where they're at right now, needing kind of to fill that void of another ball handler, offense initiator, help out Cade a little bit. He's extended, so he's out of the picture. CJ McCollum, haven't heard too many rumblings about him. Even if there was, if we all agreed we wanted him, I haven't heard too much. So if I'm being honest with you, I don't really know what to expect tomorrow. I really don't know what to expect, if I'm being honest. But I'm excited for it. And hopefully there is a player coming in here that can help make plays. That's what I'm
I mean, there's always those players too where like you don't hear anything about it, and there's just players that are involved in trades that no one's talking about. So maybe there's a surprise player. It's always, obviously like the Lonzo. I mean, that was like the biggest rumor, and the man he just got extended. So it's like things can happen that like we're all talking like this player. It could be someone so random we don't even know. As long as, again, I said it at the beginning of the show, I'll say it the next 24 hours. Trajan Langdon has to make a move. Like if he doesn't make a move, it's disappointing. At the end of the day, like you're in the 6th spot. And I'm going to check something too, because I saw this earlier today, and last 10 games, Pistons are 4-6, and they're about to drop another game, potentially be 3-7 in their last 10. Like you need another piece here with no Jaden Ivey until Ivy gets like you need a piece. You're in a position to make a push for a playoff run. If you don't make that move, like that's disappointing. It is. As much as like people might not have realized before the season we were going to be buyers, we're buyers, and you make a move. So I honestly, typically what's crazy is the last 15 years, maybe not every year, but majority of the years, the Pistons were the teams taking on contracts, buying players out. Like today, you bring all these players in. Typically, a normal Pistons team, you'd probably buy 1 or 2 of those guys out and not even do another trade and just say, let's move on. We just brought these guys in to get to the cap, do what we had to do, buy some guys out and get 2 second-round picks. That's like what bad teams do. Like what Trajan's doing is he's bringing all these assets in so he can give some of these players and some of these picks to one of those bad teams for one of their better players, like the Pistons have done in the past. Like that's just it's one of those situations, which is good. Like we're finally in one of those positions to make that move. And the fact that you are in that position, if you don't make that move, I'm gonna be mad. I hope you boys would be mad too.
Well, yeah.
I hope the whole city would be pounding the table. Like I know we want to love Trajan and all that, but again, like it's year one. You have to hold them to the standard of where your team's at, not where you've been, where this team is in a position to win a playoff game. You have to hold him to that standard. And if he doesn't make the move, that's going to be Trajan's first, hey, welcome to Detroit. Fan base can be a little rough on you.
Yeah, look at Ryan. He says, Jeff, bring back Kojo. How dare you, Ryan? How dare you?
Let me ask you guys a name. We talked about Colin Sexton. I know that I've been huge on bringing Colin Sexton home, but what about another Jazz guard? What would you guys think about Jordan Clarkson? Because you look at Jordan Clarkson, when you talk about Jaden Ivey, just a bucket getter, that's what Jordan Clarkson is. I mean, he's putting up good numbers. He got hurt at the beginning of January, but just returned. Isn't putting up bad balls since then. And he's cheaper than Colin Sexton, too. He's about a $14 million cap hit. And I think he's exactly what you need because he's a player that has experience coming off the bench. So when Ivy returns, if you still bring Clarkson back or if you want to ship him after, whatever you want to do, if he stays, it's no different to have Jordan Clarkson running the point guard off your bench. And if you put him and Beasley back there, that'd be a good 6th, 7th man on the rotation.
Yeah, I just it's actually not a bad option. It's not.
Like, he won't cost anything, but I'm just trying to think of names that like Boone, you're talking about, like a lot of these trades that happened outside of like you knew Jimmy Butler was going to get traded. You didn't know where. There's a lot of guys on the trade deadline who just you never think of, and it's like, oh, because Shawn brought up the point, like Utah, they're selling anything. If they're willing to sell Colin Sexton, you're telling me they won't take a phone call for Jordan Clarkson?
Hey, I just got an alert on. I just saw that the Hawks and the Raptors are in pursuit. They're the 2 favorites to land Brandon Ingram. So that's another.
I mean, Brandon Ingram's even out there. Like, would you be mad if they use and go get Brandon Ingram? Like, no, I'm not, because that's someone you've been talking about to pair up with Cade for the last year and a half now. So, like, if they somehow get into that sweepstakes, I'm sitting there. I'm like, if you bring in Brandon Ingram, you're not talking about just winning a playoff game. You're talking about Cade, Brandon Ingram. If Ivy comes back, Asar, like Jalen Durant, you're talking about winning a playoff series with that. Like that's one of those big pieces where I keep saying, boys, like bring another number 2 option to go with Cade. That's your number 2 option, and then Ivy comes back. Now you have that's a legit like rotation. That's like a legit like, hey, we can go win playoff series with that. So yeah, I mean those types of guys, like man, bring Brandon Ingram, man. I don't care.
Yeah, I would like Brandon Ingram. I've already mentioned that he does need a new contract, which, that's part of it when you're getting guys like that. I'm curious what he would go for. That's what I like. It says the Hawks and the Raptors are the two teams. It's like a 2-team race right now. I'm excited to see what that trade, what would it look like? Maybe a young player and like a pick maybe, or two, whatever it is. But yeah, he's available. I mean, we'll see what they do. I know Trajan, I mean, you nailed it, Boone, when you mentioned the last 10 games. Like they're about to drop this game. And I mean, the pressing one was the loss of the Hawks. That one sucked. And now they just dropped another one. So in the East, every game matters right now.
That's what I'm saying. In the East right now, though, like if you're in the West, you're not even in the play-in tournament if you're the Pistons. So you have a chance, like with your record, you're at the 6th seed. Maybe after a loss tonight, you drop to the 7. But like if you're in the West, you're not making the play-in at like how you're playing. So you're like, again, you're in an amazing spot to be able to go out there and make a move, make something happen, and get into the playoffs and actually show like, hey, this is what we're about, and take a step forward. Because I say it all the time with any sport, like the best experience with some of these guys, especially younger guys like Cade, and if Ivy plays, like playoff experience. That's why I think the Tigers are going to be good this year, because it's like typically like you have players and guys who can make plays. They usually don't take that step until they get into the dance and they get that experience. And you're like, oh, finally, and that's why I'm like, hey, the Tigers this year, they're going to make a run because they know what it takes and they know what it's like to play in the postseason. Pistons just need to get there. You need to get there. Let these young guys get a taste of it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I just saw my screen, K just got fouled shooting a 3. And now it's going to be, if he makes his next free throw, 113 to 112 with 7 seconds left. So, I mean, hopefully there's a miracle right here and they win this game. This is reverse.
That'd be unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a 1-point game, assuming
7.3 seconds
free throws. Yeah. I mean, you have 3-point game with basically Cade 3. I mean, or Malik or something. But hopefully and then you go to overtime. But we'll see. They just have to make these free throws. But yeah, I think we're all in agreement. Pistons got to make a move. It's that point right now. It doesn't have to be all chips in, but at least someone that can help contribute. That's all it is right now. With how wide open the East is. We never really got to, and I wanted to bring it up tomorrow. Coach of the Year, Kevin O'Connell, Dan Campbell. We've talked about it before, and we went back and forth because I believe Kevin O'Connell was the Coach of the Year, and then that game against Minnesota happened, and I'm like, wow, Dan just outcoached Kevin O'Connell clearly. So I would give the nod to Dan Campbell. But do you guys think it's a runaway at this point, or do you think it's closer? Because I think it's going to be a close race. I don't think it's a runaway by Dan Campbell. I'll say that, but I think Dan should win it.
I mean, I have a bet slip over here, plus 300.
What is
Dan
it right
Campbell
now?
Doing. I don't. They took it down. I think after, but I have a plus 300 bet slip that's been sitting there for like 2 months. I think I took it right before the Minnesota game, and he wasn't favored. But then they win that game, and then you would think the odds changed. Like you would think that Dan Campbell. I mean, Ari Mayrov did a little like award show, and they did Coach of the Year, and Ari picks Kevin O'Connell. And I got the argument of like we're just talking regular season, like because I know you lost in the playoffs, like that's
regular.
Like, the argument of in the regular season, like hey, Kevin O'Connell did what he did, 14 wins. Was it 14, 13, 14 wins, whatever, with the team that he had? Dan Campbell was expected that. Like, I think if you looked at that, okay. But if you actually dig deeper and you go, oh, wait a second, Dan Campbell, 20-something guys on the IR, like 13-plus guys defensively on the IR, 15 beating Kevin O'Connell twice with all of the injuries defensively, like just constantly finding a way every time. Like that Houston game, you're down. Guess what? Dan Campbell, rally the troops, get back into it. Like he has, like, dude, they were literally 1 for 7 in the red zone versus the Bucks away from winning the game. Maybe one bad decision all season long on kicking the onside kick in the Bills game from winning that game. Like that's how close they were to an undefeated season with 20-plus guys on IR. Like that's like ridiculous. If it was any other coach in the NFL, if this was the Vikings that had that, like it would be an automatic. Like that guy's the head coach of the year. Like he deserves it. He's like what he's had and what he's gone through for them to win 15 games is ridiculous. And oh wait, The other guy for coach of the year, he beat him twice while doing like there should be no question Dan Campbell wins it. And it's going to be close. And I would I be shocked if Kevin O'Connell won it? No, because there are these people out here who want to, again, Jeff, you introduced me to this term, the smartest man in the room. There are people who want to do that. And it's like just pick Dan Campbell. He's the one that deserves it at the end of the day. Like he's what he did this year was incredible.
Yeah, I don't have to add more than what you guys just said. I think you have to be ignorant. It's malfeasance to be an NFL fan and to look at yourself in the mirror and say that Kevin O'Connell should be.
That's
I
ridiculous.
understand. Hefe, I understand.
That's
I
ridiculous.
understand. Sam Darnold looked like he could be an MVP candidate. Sure, I wonder who said he could possibly be that one day. It was last year, but you could see the writing on the wall. Like he was the most talented quarterback outside of Kirk Cousins that he's had. Kevin O'Connell's turnaround quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. Nothing surprising there. Honestly, like you knew that Sam Darnold would be all right. You didn't expect him to be that good. You did not expect for this defense to fall apart. What's more shocking? What's more realistic? The fact that Kevin O'Connell was able to play a serviceable quarterback in Sam Darnold, get that offense to the level that it was, Brian Flores having a good defense, or Aiden Hutchinson going down, 20 of those guys on defense going down, and winning 15 games and still beating the guy that has Sam Darnold playing at elite level, that offense, elite, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson later on in the season. And you still lost. You still pissed your leg on the 1 yard line. The offensive guru, Kevin O'Connell, who I had a lot of respect for, couldn't punch it in from the 1. You kept throwing, you got cute. So, in my opinion, you could be close, but 10 times out of 10, it should go to Dan Campbell.
Dude.
It's literally like you matched up.
No, this is where you lose me. All right. I'm okay with Dan Campbell saying Dan Campbell should win it, but not refusing to not. I see what you're doing, Klotzy. You're acknowledging, but at the same time, not acknowledging. What did we say?
Cute. Sam Darnold's cute.
Sam Darnold, you know what I think? I'll say that. You know what I think helps Kevin O'Connell is Sam Darnold folding helps his case, in my opinion, because then you look at the season and say, Kevin, this dude, this guy, the Lions game and the Rams, that guy, you got 14 wins with in the defense. Like credit to Brian Flores too, like pretty good defense all year for the most part. But Kevin O'Connell did what with what? That's how I look at it. So I think it'll be closer. I think Dan gets it because the injuries, he beat him twice. Like he has the narrative too. But to act like it's malfeasance. If anyone
pissed down his leg in the week 18 and then pissed down his leg the same exact way in the wild card round.
Playoffs don't matter.
The same defensive game plan. You know what he didn't do? Adjust. Regular season award. You know what he didn't do during that game against the Lions? Adjust.
Yeah, but 14 wins with that dude, and they beat good teams.
15 wins with no Aiden Hutchinson, no Marcus Davenport on the other side, no Ali McNeil in crucial moments, a huge game stretch with no Alex Anzalone.
Yeah, no, I'm not denying that. I just think you're dismissing.
No, I see it. Trust me, I see it. That's
or
why
you're like you're giving it a little bit.
It's kind of close.
It
It's like 60-40, but every time it's 60-40.
Okay. All right. I mean, I guess I'll take that's probably the best I'm going to get here. So I'll take that. 60-40, but you believe it's 60 every time.
Yeah. Favoring Dan Campbell.
Okay. Even though if I told you 60-40%, you jump out of a plane and that's the parachute percentage, you'd probably be like
that analogy makes no correlation here. All I'm saying
but what I'm saying is
if
60-40 is actually
if you're going to ask me, win me one game in 2025 this season. Win me one game. Dan Campbell or Kevin O'Connell?
That's not the coach of the year award. You know that.
Well,
I'm confused on what I'm confused on what I'm a little like taken aback right now.
With what?
I'm confused on what this argument's about, to be honest.
You didn't like the tone I had for.
He was
Dan
dismissing. Like me and you both agreed, Boone, that it's gonna be close. It's gonna,
yeah, but 100% should be Dan that wins it, though.
Yes, we agree. But the way Klotzy was in a way dismissing what happened with the Vikings, like that's not
like the tone.
Okay, I mean, now we're just. By the way, Darius Garland just hit a game winner from like half court on the Pistons, so that was why I was a little zoned out. I was a little zoned out because I saw and I was like, Cade made 3 threes to tie the game, and I was like, okay, OT, and then Darius Garland, they had no timeouts, 5 seconds left, pulls up one dribble after half court, boom. hits a 3, wins the game. It like play some
That's
defense
tough.
there. You got, I mean,
Yeah,
you got to
this-
step up. You got to step back-to-back game winners. I guess like the Trey Young one was like that was good. Like they were locking up a little bit. That was a tough shot, but like tonight, I mean, from half court, man,
yeah.
I mean, it's just a simple dribble, pull up.
Been
Guy,
taking notes from Max Cruz.
Asar really just goes for the steal instead of stopping him. And it's like, you can't just go for the ball. Like, you got to hand up. Like, that's like a rookie mistake to me from a second-year guy.
See, Amon recently, too. Dude's been going nuts.
That's
Sad
tough,
days.
dude. You just can't, like, dude, 5 seconds left. No threes. Like, no, everything in front. Everything in front. Keep him in front. Make him throw up a bad shot.
I can't believe
Asar reaches.
Wow.
Wide open 3. It's be disciplined, man. That's all it comes down to. You're at OT.
Wow, I just saw that. That's yeah.
You see him? Like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
Asar, that's a bad play by Asar, man.
What
Keep
are
him
you
in front of
doing?
you. Make him. It's like, what are we doing?
I mean, that's like basketball 101. Like,
Yeah.
end of game scenario. Sorry. All right. 100% Dan Campbell wins it.
That win would have
Very
been
fine take.
massive too.
Would have been huge. I mean, even just get to OT. Like, you were down, come back.
Oh.
Cade did literally everything he could.
Dude, that's
That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Like, dude, just play defense. Like, dude, 5 seconds. Like, I just don't understand. Why are you trying to steal the rock? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and that drops them to 7. And if they were like, honestly, if you flip those 2 losses, they'd probably be tied. They'd be tied 5th. Nah, Milwaukee would have a little bit on just because they play less games so far, but they'd be right there for the 5th seed. Now you're in the 7th. In a 2-game swing.
That is ridiculous, man. Well, Trajan, or I'll say this. Well, the Detroit Pistons, you got some help coming, huh? KJ Martin, Josh Richardson, and in Waters the third.
Luther.
Is it Luther? Wow, that's a hell of a
Maybe my memory serves me.
Oh
wrong.
no, it's Lindy.
No, all right.
I kind of like that. I was gonna say Luther would be wow.
Who am I
Lindy,
thinking
it's
of?
all the same. I mean,
Oh, I know who I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of Luther Burden.
Burden the third, yeah. Luther is a name you just don't really hear often, do you? And then there's Lindy. That's crazy. No disrespect to him. Listen. Hopefully the Pistons, I don't want to say it. They'll be all right. They'll make the playoffs. They'll get 35 wins.
I have faith. Don't lose faith now, Jeff.
Drop your mailbag questions, and we will get to them. Because that loss is ridiculous. Wheezy D says, I hate Garland. Can't wait for the playoffs when he becomes unplayable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he has barbecued chicken on defense, but that shot was insane. What he just did. Full court, like, run it, like, that's just... those are the shots you take, like, after playing, like, you're at the rec, you're playing, you're having fun with your boys, and then after, you're like, all right, boys, we're going to head out, and you start taking, like, half courts.
Fuck it.
Dude just did. I mean, that's ridiculous. Derek, actually, we'll get to Malik. I see Malik as first here. Mailbag, did you see the tweet Chardavius Ward posted saying, whatever team I'm on next year, go and get the best version of me. I'm hungry. Seems like a line to me, fellas.
Especially if Carlton leaves, please. I think you're in a
Can I mention that, by the way? The interaction earlier? Like, can I mention the...
Yeah.
I have a... this is, I don't know if it's conspiracy theory. I have a theory in general. I think Carlton Davis.
Oh,
that. Not the third, his pops.
This
the
guy,
second.
dude.
I think. And if he's watching now, what's up, Pops? All right,
Honestly, I'm not going to lie. One of the funniest things I've ever seen Jeff do is reply to this guy on our YouTube and go, is that you, Pops? Like, dude, what is that? Like, that's the craziest response trying to be like.
Well, he commented on our Carlton
is that you,
video,
Pops?
and he said he was
He
had
said-
an issue with us saying DJ Reed is a cornerback 1, like or something along those lines. And he said basically pay the man. And I responded, and I was like, "Is that you, Pops? Is that you?" And he responded.
No,
he
he
didn't
gave
answer.
the contract rundown. He was like 15 mil, home state, no state income taxes. Like
He's
just
talking about
gave-
Jacksonville, how it's in his home state, and I'm like, "Why is this his dad?" Like, it counts Carlton Davis, and you go to his profile, and he has a playlist with all Carlton Davis's plays. Like, it seems like a Pops thing to do. Like, you're on YouTube, you got a playlist with your son, all the plays he makes. And then I respond, I'm like, or he says that back, like the Jacksonville thing, and I'm like, "Oh no, like obviously the Lions fan, we would love to have Carlton back. I just don't know what the money would look like." And he said it's only he mentioned like a deal. It was like a 3 for $45, I think it was. I think that's like 15 a year. Yeah, 15 a year. And he's like, it's like a $2 raise to the average man. Like, why not just give him a raise? And I was like, that sounds great. Like 15 a year, like that's fine. Like I responded, I was like, well, take that deal. 3 for 43 or 45, whatever it is. I'm cool with bringing him back. I just thought it was funny that we met
the deal
DJ
too.
Reed, and he was like, DJ Reed? It was like, what? Or I think he had a problem with someone said DJ Reed was consistent. I forgot who said that. He didn't. Pops didn't agree.
That would be me.
Pops didn't agree with it. Yeah. I mean, he knows his son's a great cornerback, so I would assume he knows what he's talking about there. But yeah, shout out to Pops. I don't know. Again, I don't know how true that is. It's my theory. We'll see how that ages. Derek, Mailbag, get Dose on the show post Senior Bowl. Derek, I've reached out to Dose. I know he's busy, super busy, so I would love to have him on the show. But at the same time, I don't want to bug him too much. I'm going to talk to him, reach out to him again next week, see how he's doing. Maybe we can get him on because, he was at the Senior Bowl and he did great work there. So we'd love to talk to Dose about that. Anakin, Mailbag, is there any other player you wouldn't mind letting go? I think that was about Doc's question. I think Doc nailed it, boys, if I'm being honest. Of all the players, it's probably J-Mo, unfortunately. Yeah. But that's just, I think, I hate saying
I guess it depends.
No disrespect. It's the priority, I think, that Brad would look at it. Like Brian Branch, Kirby, Aiden, those guys you have to resign, man. Have to.
I guess you have to just look at it to see. I mean, you have time to think about it and go over. Like, you're going to draft more players and see who's in free agency. So it could depend on who Brad feels like it's going to be the easiest to replace. Not more so just like, hey, pick one player. It's going to be like, hey, like if they have another safety come in or another wide receiver that comes in and ends up being like a dog, you're like, oh, now we feel more comfortable being able to roll with this guy. But I think Brad knows he's going to have to make that decision soon. So the people who are like, hey, he's not going to bring in another safety or draft another safety or draft another wide receiver or do this, like, no, he probably will because he knows, like, hey, you're going to need a replacement at those positions at some point. So I'm sure Brad is like seeing that as well. And it could be other positions too. I mean, I'm trying to think of some other guys that might,
So we're on kind of this. It's tough. It's a tough decision no matter how you shape it. I mean,
he could end up moving on from one of the safeties as much as we don't like it.
Yeah, you never know.
Like, he could go out and draft a safety this year who ends up being like an absolute dog, like he was with Kirby, and be like, I know in 2 years I have to move on. Like, Branch doesn't have to get extended for another year or two. Or again, the reason I asked the doc this is like the franchise tag. Like, you can use, like, he might have to use that on guys because of how good the team is, how good some of these players are. Like, you might have to like keep a guy for one extra year. Like, think about who just did it this year? The Bengals, T. Higgins. Like, T wanted a new contract. He sat out, and then eventually it was just like, he was like, I just want to win. And he was like, I'll just sign the franchise tag and we'll figure this thing out next offseason. And it's like, it's going to end up happening. Like, there's going to be a guy on this team, whether it's one of your safeties or J-Mo. Like, boys, J-Mo might go through that. Like, I know I said get the deal done this year to get it cheap, but like, if they don't do one this year, I'll probably start. If they don't get a deal done this offseason, my thought process with J-Mo would be like franchise tag. Like, that's going to be in play because all these other extensions you have to give out, and you have to figure that out.
Yeah,
so they can maximize it.
Yeah. Real quick before we get to ETN's question, John, I didn't get to this earlier. That's on me, Doc. He member for 3 months, of course. The Doc supporting the fellas as always. First playoff series win: Pistons or Wings?
Easy, the Red Wings. I think they did get it done this year. They're starting to get really good.
Yeah, the Wings have the talent. They just needed they needed the structure.
The difference with the Wings to me and the Pistons is like the Pistons have young guys that are starting to like. I think the Wings have a very good like Larkin and Lucas Raymond and DeBrincat and Patrick K. Like those are kind of, to me, those are guys that are starting to get a little like to that level to where you're like, hey, these are actually dudes in the league now. But then the Red Wings still also have their young guys coming up. And some of those young guys are like going to be absolute dogs too. So like, I wouldn't be shocked this year Red Wings make the playoffs and win a series. I don't think the Pistons, like if I had to give a pick this year, like I would go Wings for sure. And then even in the next few years, I think the Wings are more up and up right now.
Hey, fellas, before we answer this one, can I ask about the last question too? Like your thoughts on things talking about JMO?
Yeah.
Another one that I think would definitely be like throw in there, I think is Jack Campbell for sure. I think Jack Campbell, like when you look at where his contract would be, is he worth the money compared to what you can get out of a rookie linebacker, even if it's first, second, third, fourth round? I think he's definitely named to watch out for as well. But I know, Boone, you're very high on Jack Campbell. Jeff, you are as well. What would you guys think about that one?
It's tough because it's like the same thing with a player like Derek Barnes this year. Like, and I do actually thought about it. Someone asked a great question, and I want to talk about it tomorrow. So I'm going to wait. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But I'm in the same kind of boat like with Derek Barnes. But Derek Barnes, love him, but we'll see what happens. Like Jack Campbell, I think at this point, it's hard to say because we don't know what player. If he turns into a really good player, like I would love Jack back. But like you said, if you draft a linebacker, maybe he ends up, he's just as good as Jack. Like then you have a different. You can move in a different way, but.
The thing with
I don't
Jack,
hate it. It's just tough to answer that right now. We don't know what Jack's gonna. We don't know.
Are you saying move on from Jack Klotz? Like he's
like as far not trade him, but as far as that guy that like can't re-sign everybody. Like
that's the kid.
Be a guy in offense, defense, probably be one on. Both
I don't think
sides.
like Jack's one of those guys. Like Jack's contract's not up until after 2027. Like if you opt into his 5th-year deal, it's 2025. He's played 2 years. You still have 2 years before his option, and then you have a 3rd year with his option. So I don't even think, to me, it's even a question with Jack. And I look at Jack as one of those guys to where I said, like with the safeties or with like JMO, to where like you look for a guy to replace some players. Like to me, Jack's that guy to where in the next 3-4 years, as you still have him under contract, like Anzo's the one you move on from because he's the one that's going to be older, and Jack's takes a step into that spot, and then you have to go get a new linebacker to replace kind of Jack's current spot. Like that's how I look at it. And that's why like right now the safety room, you don't really have that. You just have your 2 dudes. Like wide receiver, you just have Amon-Ra and JMO. Like those spots. Like you just have your dudes. Like at least with the linebacker, like you have your LB1 with Anzo. It's like he's probably not going to be here the next 5-6 years. Like he's getting older. Like he's at that point of his career. It's gonna come up at some point. You move on from Anzo, and Jack's like the one that steps up. Like, I look at Anzo in that spot of the JMO, those guys. Like, what do you guys do for it? Like, are you going to end up moving on with Anzo? Like, that's how I look at it more so.
All right. Well, hey,
how old is Alex Anzalone?
Favorite NBA player? I'll say this: it's Cade Cunningham, but you know who it is.
Not Bron.
I'm a Pistons fan, so Cade's my guy.
Yeah, but the outside of Cade's like all of our guys in Detroit.
LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Luka or D-Book, one of those two.
I'm a big Ant fan. I love Anthony Edwards, just the way that he plays basketball. I think it's exciting to watch. Plays good defense, shoots the 3-pointer a little bit more now, getting better at it. But I just think he can do everything well. And just like, I don't know, I liked him coming out of Georgia, being like the whole football background. Obviously, he wasn't playing there, but like he loved the game of football, so it caught my attention. Started watching him, and just fun to fucking watch, man.
He would have been a dog at wide receiver too. He would have been a dog. All right, hey, we'll get out of here. Appreciate you all. Appreciate the doc. We will be back tomorrow, cover the Pistons deadline day, and get into some national mock drafts because we have one full second round mock draft. We'll go through tomorrow, talk about it. It'll be a good time. But until then, we appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your night. Get your merchandise, officialctsports.com. And we just hit 12.3 thousand. So that's huge. Appreciate all the support. Like the stream before you go and leave us a 5-star review if you're listening on any podcast platforms. But until tomorrow, we will catch you all. Have a great night.
Peace.